And here we are. I am here with the all-powerful Spider-Dan, and we've been nattering on for about 20 minutes before even pressing record about a wide variety of things, some of which we're not specifically going to tell you guys, because other podcasts and things kind of have them either out or soon to be out. But Dan, good sir, when we start the podcast, by you telling us, I know I'm not going to try and tread all the same things that happen in Geek. I really recommend people go and check out Era of Geek, Paul DeMac, the Super Dummy Paul. I'll make sure I put a link in the description because that's like a really good intro to you as a person. So this is more of an add-on to that. I don't want to be instead of. But the name Spider-Dan, why don't you tell us sort of where that came from, why you started a podcast, and we'll just kind of flitter about from there.
When I was a kid, I got all sorts of horrible fucking nicknames. Like, you name it, they all seem to be around the size and shape of my head. And I was like, it started off and it was like, you got a big fucking head, you got a triangle head, you got a fucking alien head. And then things just kind of escalated from there. They were like, you look like fucking Z from Ants, that film. or you look like Zurg. Zurg from Toy Story. Because I didn't get that one really, because they were like, alien, he's an alien. That movie was out at the time. So Zurg. I was like, sure, what the fuck? It doesn't matter. So it was kind of a nickname I kind of gave to myself, which I guess is not really the way nicknames should really work. I'm like,
for branding, it works. I mean, that's what a brand is, isn't it? When you want to, like, you know, the thing is, make sure you keep your brand and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's how people remember you. So that actually worked out for the best in the long run.
Yeah, in a weird way, it kind of makes sense. Like, I've always been like, Spider-Man is my, personal hero. You can see him in the fucking background even now. Several Spider-Man, Marvel related. Oh, there's MODOK. Several related kind of stuff. But like for me, that was like very key component to kind of who I was and relating to that journey of that character, being the nerd and wanting to be something different and to be greater than what you appear to be, like the hero inside yourself. I kind of did that, and obviously I was a big Spider-Man fan, so I think I just kind of called myself that, because it was kind of like, it's kind of catchy and kind of worked, and everyone knew I was kind of into Spider-Man, so why not? The podcast kind of came out of me. I kind of came out of I'd done 10 years worth of acting, professional work, longer, probably more like 15 years if you include the years of college training. I did 3 years at college and then another 3 years at uni, so maybe more like 16 years total. Yeah. I was really into it as a kid, like really young, and then I kind of fell out of it because I was like, I'm a teenager and I'm too cool to prance around on stage. I want to get with girls. And I didn't get with any girls, so that was the problem.
So you're back to acting.
So I was like, yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've talked about it on the Geek podcast and said, I have learning difficulties and that's affected me kind of socially and growth, learning and just getting on with people, kind of socializing. I've got better over years, thank fuck. Or I just I don't know where I'd be, just in some sort of hole. Chained up somewhere. But yeah, and that kind of, I failed up like pretty much all my GCSEs. I didn't get any C grades. I was like, fuck, what do I do now? And they were like, at college, they were like, you can do art or you can do acting. And I was like, well, I'm shit at art. So I'm gonna have to reignite that old kind of passion. And again, it kind of lit that fire. And yeah, I just continued. I went on, top grades throughout college, went on to uni. Came out with a kind of a 2-1, which, for someone who's, has learning difficulties, that was, I was like pretty chuffed with that. I knew I wasn't going to get first. There's no way. Even I was like, I don't work that hard. I don't deserve a first. I don't suck up enough as some of these other actors. But like over the time, I've had a great career, and I did a lot of theatre mostly. I did a little bit of kind of TV and extra stuff, but mostly kind of comedy or kind of comedic roles or villain roles mostly. I was very rarely the kind of romantic lead. I did have one sex scene, and it was with one of my best friends. So it was a gay sex scene from Angels in America, if you're familiar with that TV series. But
now that you mentioned a gay sex scene, I might just have to take a look.
You want to? Well, it's not recorded. I don't think we've got it recorded anywhere. There's a funny little story. Maybe I'll save that for a little later on. But yeah, I kind of over the years and stuff, I kind of fell out of love with acting, and I think you're not in it for the fucking money. So
no.
So if you don't love it, what's the point in doing it? And I became a bit kind of complacent. I became a bit kind of lazy and the bitter, twisted actor, and I was just doing it for the sake of doing it. I was earning money and stuff, and I was just like, I didn't do the research and things. I was just like, I'll just do this. I've done this kind of character before. I'll just do this. And that's not the way you should be. You should be giving it your all. You should be putting in the effort. You should be passionate that you're going home and researching and reading plays and doing the work that is required to realistically or surrealistically, whatever the role is, portray that character. And it was just kind of like, I think it was the emergence of kind of social media and the idea that people were getting cast purely on how many followers they had on Twitter, as opposed to being actually talented or being a good actor. That was it, because you can get all these people to come see the show and they'll pay tickets and book the tickets in early and stuff in advance.
Same with bands.
I've
got friends who are in bands and stuff, and they're like, I've got, 50 friends on Facebook who would willing to come to my first show, and then another 10 who'd come to the second or third. On the fifth show with the same 6-song set, most people check out. But if you've got someone who's got like 1 billion friends on Facebook or whatever, and they're just like, if you get less than 1% every time, a lot of the promoters are going to be like, oh, I love that band because you bring loads of people, even though you don't sound good, and this other band sound brilliant. We want you to bring people for money. So I do get that kind of element.
Yeah, there is a kind of I think the best word to describe how I felt was kind of jaded. I think that's the best kind of word to describe it. And I just felt out of love with it. It's like a bad relationship. If neither of you are putting in 100%, it's not going to work out. If you're not making the effort, it's not going to work out. And it was kind of like that. And I described it that way. And again, it was like a bad relationship because I knew it was over, but I kept like holding on. I was like, it'll get better, it'll improve. We'll, if I do this or, something will happen. If I get this next part. And I just, I fell out of the world. I fell out of the social circle because there is a kind of a social circle involved as well. Yeah. And the networking element. And I was just like, why the fuck am I doing this? But I knew if I didn't do something creative in some form, I was going to want to fucking kill myself if I'm just doing a day-to-day mundane job. Like yourself, you don't live for your job, and I don't live for my job. It's literally just that gives me money to do things like this, or gives me the ability to live and do the kind of things I want to do. And and I've got a Patreon with my some of the followers and a lot of people in the Comics in Motion group. They're amazing because I very rarely deliver on my Patreon. I'm like fucking hell, why are they still paying me? I need to do more things. Again, there's one coming up, I promise, that I need to do, which I will do very soon after editing a 4-hour podcast. But it kind of came out of that, and I've always had a fondness for kind of cult film and underrated kind of media, be it comic books, especially a big comic book fan as well. So I just kind of slammed them together, and I kind of looked around, and I'd been on a couple of podcasts previously, and I went, you know what, I can do this. I'm sure I can do this. I knew nothing going in. I didn't know what an RSS feed was. I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know what you do. I didn't have the money to get the gear really that I needed, which is tough. But I think the thing with podcasting is great is you can do it in so many different ways. You can, you can have your lapel mics. You can do it on your phone. It can be as long as you want or as short as you want. You can talk about whatever the fuck you want. The sky is the limit. Do what you want. And I love that ability to just and my show is random as fuck anyway, because last week I was talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre comic, and this week I'm talking about Disney feminism. And I'm all about the variety. So, the spice of life. And I try and get as many kind of different guests on, different voices and opinions and stuff. And I like it because there's always a different version of me on every show, depending on who I'm with. And so everyone gets to see a little bit of a different side of me. But that's basically what the show is about. It's about kind of exposing people to sometimes the good and sometimes the bad. I know Andy would say the bad of films and comics and things like that. So, but I just want my Angry Andy episodes as well, but I want them on my show.
Yeah.
So I'm poaching him.
That's how I feel sometimes when I have, because obviously you, me, Rhea, and Megan, we're sorting things out in the background for like a show that's going to have numerous episodes over the year and the future and things. And I'm sure we'll probably branch out with other people as well. But at the moment, It's just going to be the four of us. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I just want to chat. Oh, me and Megan to chat with a couple of other people about this thing. And it's like, we would just happen to get into a conversation about it. And we're like, well, we just do it. Like, podcasting for me is an excuse. Like I've said, I might have said on Geek actually. But yeah, people go check out Geek if you haven't already.
Really do it.
It's great. It's so much fun.
Such a great idea. And like Paul let me absolutely just... I think Paul speaks twice, and I only allow him to speak twice in his own show. But I think that's a gift as well, to give people that time, that opportunity to open up. And it was really nice to do that. And this is a similar thing. This is the appendix, if you will, to that episode.
The epilogue. It's one of those things where I kind of started the podcast partly because some of my friends told me as well. They were like, Mike, you talk an awful lot. You want a creative outlet. You stop doing the YouTube thing. You stop making music videos for bands. You're not musically talented. You can't sing for shit. So podcasting, that's a long and the short of it. I could have learned an instrument. I just don't have the patience for it. I used to play keyboard and I tried guitar and stuff. I just don't have the patience. I want to be able to just kind of click my fingers and things can be done. Although podcasting, that wasn't the case necessarily. I had to self-teach. But because I already had the background in doing YouTube stuff and music videos, I knew the basis of audio editing and video editing and just audio editing on the low scale where it's just cutting silence out of people talking and making sure things are loud enough, quiet enough, reduce echo, bass, etc. It's very simple. Not like actual full-on talented mastering. Nothing like that. I can't do that. But because of all those things, and like I had a apprenticeship and I did graphic design a lot and I did media studies, I have like all these little skills that really help when like being a podcaster and being able to basically do everything yourself. And that's what I've always been doing. And it was just one of those things where I was like, I just want an excuse to talk to people about a lot of these things. And one of the reasons, even like the Afterthought show I've got with Megan on my Patreon, the only reason we've really got that is because when me and Megan watch a film, I'll ask her, what do you think of that? And she'll go, yeah, it's pretty good. Oh yeah, it was all right. And I go, any more today? She's like, not really. This bit was cool, I guess. And there's no way to get out of her. But if she's in a conversation with someone else about it, she'll open up loads. And so it's like on Afterthoughts, it's just like I chuck on a mic and I get to talk with Megan about the films I want to talk to her about. And because she does have that part in her where I don't think she thinks she has this, but she does have that presenting part in her where she does want to, she is very funny. She wants
to share with people and that experience. She's great. I really, every time I've listened to the show, I'm not on the Patreon.
I'm not. This isn't me trying to dig at you. Going, Dan, you're not on my Patreon. No,
better be on that. Yeah. Every time I mention it to my other friend, he was like, I'm paying for a mortgage. I can't have that on my thing. And I'm like, don't worry about it. It's fine. I literally expected nobody's, when I started it, I went, I'm just going to put it out there. If people join, it's fine. But I really expect nobody to jump on and do it. And then within the day, I had 3 or 4 people and I was like, fuck me. And then 5, and then 6 and so on. And again, such great people, so patient, and they love everything I do, always sharing and stuff. And it's brilliant. And yeah, Megan is great. The more I hear from Megan, hear about Megan, the more I'm impressed by her, just her everything she's done and her entire life. I'm like, wow, she is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, she speaks 4 languages. She's learning a 5th language, learning how to speak German as well. She can play like banjo, saxophone, keyboard, steel pan. She's played steel pans and things in a steel pan band. She's traveled like loads of Europe, like by herself, like her and a friend of hers, just for a month, went interrailing, just going on the trains through like Romania to like from like Spain to Romania to like all kinds of other places and stuff, and obviously where she can speak 4 languages and do all that. And I'm like, fuck me, what was I doing when I like moved out of home? I was like, nothing. Nothing at all.
I was probably just wanking. I think that's all I was doing.
Lots and lots of porn visits, and I've got an encyclopedic knowledge of porn stars, which is helpful.
I've traveled the world through porn. Brazilian, Japanese. Even you talking about your skills and music and editing and stuff, and I was like, I could barely act. On a good day, I was like, I can just about, like, I think that was why I did it as well, because somebody was like, I think initially it was kind of like, I don't want to be me. I don't like me. So I'm just going to become somebody else. I'm going to be sexy and heroic, or I'm going to be a psycho killer or a creep or a weirdo. One of my friend's mums, she came up to me once, and after we did a comedy sketch, and I played a creep in it, surprise, surprise, which is seemingly one I get cast as a lot. And it was like, and she went, "You do creepy very well." I was like, is that a compliment? I was like, I'm not sure if that's like, is it just the way I look? I'm like, yeah. You know, and I don't know, but yeah, I was like, okay, thanks.
That's why.
Moving on.
That's why I couldn't be an actor, really, because especially when I was younger, it was just like, well, I have to pretend to be other people, but I want me. So it was like, no, there's no me pretend to be other people. I was too egotistical for that sort of tomfoolery.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ego, a lot of pretentiousness and ego in the acting world, and I've experienced it, and I think there's a bit of that kind of pat yourself on the back type thing, and that you know, there's a showcase for yourself and you want people to come up to you. You know, it's one of those things where it's almost like people have to come and tell you did a good job. Like directly after, like, did you like the show? What did you think of the show? Was I good? Tell me more. Yeah. Feed me more compliments. It's kind of like you're almost like you're trapped and you have to say that you love it.
Yeah.
Like you go to someone's wedding and go, "Oh, it's so beautiful." And then they turn around and go, "No, it's a piece of shit. My wedding would be much better."
It's more what you think and what you say, isn't it? It's like anything, though, because like with performing, it's one of the reasons why this podcast was so good for me, because I started it 4.5 years ago now. Let me think.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's September 2018, I think, is when the first episode dropped. So I was doing it a little bit before then. But for me, it worked really well because I'm attached to the name and the brand and stuff, but ironically, it's not about me. So it's that kind of thing where it's like, you know, although people who like me as a host will then tune in more, the point of it is not about me. The point is, you know, probably about half to 2/3 of the conversations I have are with people who are, you know, everyone is slightly more interesting than I am on these shows, but part of that half to 2/3 is kind of like, these are people that I want them to talk as much as possible. They probably won't come on the show again because they've got this one or two things to talk about, but this is really, really interesting to hear. And then the other sort of quarter to third-ish is people like yourself and other podcasters who I'm friends with, and it's just, I want an excuse to chat to this person for an hour to two. And recording it and putting it out there is a lot of fun. So it's kind of that nice mix where it's like, although people come in and listen for me, the good thing is that if I talk too much, it takes away from the show. So I have to self-manage certain parts of me. Yeah,
I definitely, like, I sometimes have to kind of check in with myself while I'm doing it, because I'm a talker. Like I am a talker. And I want to say that, you know, I don't just talk over people, but I do. I will honestly, like, you listen to my shows, there's times where I just be like, nah. Like, if you listen to the one with Jack, the one we did on the Alfred Hitchcock, we did Rear Window, we did Body Double, and we did Disturbia. Mm-hmm. I was editing that and I went, fucking hell, Dan, shut the fuck up. You've got an amazing, talented, you know, film reviewer, a teacher of film who knows more than you fucking do, you idiot. What are you doing? You're talking all over, you're running roughshod all over him. I will say, in my defense, I either got a flu jab or a COVID jab that day, but I felt so bad. I was like, I need to get him back on again and actually let him fucking speak this time. So we did our Wrong Direction recently on 1941.
I'm almost, I think I've either just finished that or I'm in the last like few minutes of that. It's a film I'd never seen. I'd never even heard of it. And then I saw a lot of people, and then when I saw you guys were like, yeah, it's not good, I was like, okay.
I can listen to it without the spoilers.
It's like with VHS Strikes Back or the comics and motion TV movies thing. It's either I've seen it or it's so bad I'm never going to watch it. But it's that weird middle ground where it's just like, you know, there's quite a few, I'm a film buff as well, but there's a large amount of films I just haven't seen, and we've got one of those 100 movie posters where you can like scratch it off like a scratch card at certain films that you've seen, and it shows a nice little cool non-copyrighted image. It's quite funny seeing some of the things like American History X is a tooth on a curb, and I'm like, that's cool. Even that is, yeah. And then you've got Terminator, it's just sunglasses with like a red dot there, and I was like, that's just Terminator enough so you don't get sued.
They do them online, the minimalist posters for movies.
Yeah, exactly.
I like those. They're really well done, and again, just a simple. I love like really simple images, and even like comic book. My favorite like comic book costumes on superheroes are the ones that have simplicity about them. Like again, I love Spider-Man. That is probably one of the more complex ones. With all
it's
the
quite blocky in color, though, isn't it? I mean, and it depends which one you think about. I mean, if you think about complexity of almost. If you think about like coloring in individual areas, maybe, but I suppose think about. I think it's more so when if it's just him standing there. Oh, excuse me. If it's just him standing there, it's not too bad. But I think it's more so when he starts to turn and trying to get the perspective of the webs on it properly. Because like with Batman, it's a bit easier because it's a lot of it's just darkness, so it's quite easy. And Superman is just blue and abs and a bit of red. Whereas Spider-Man with those lines, I'm just like, if you have that front on shot. And then he bends over slightly. The whole of the drawing of the actual webbing on his chest. So thinking about it more so, I think you're right. It's probably one of the most complex perspective-wise to draw. Well,
if you notice in a lot of the animation as well, they do very minimal webbing because it's too hard to animate if you just got loads of little. Here's a comic book fact that you may or may not know. So early on, when Spider-Man was would shoot like webs towards the camera, it would just be like a net, and they'd just be like, and it'd just become more netting. Yeah. And then Todd McFarlane came along in like the late 80s, and he invented what he calls the spaghetti webbing, which is like the long strand with the kind of looping round it, which is basically what it is now. That's the standard kind of Spider-Man webbing for the most part. And that was so he could use it as it was like, imagine it as a kind of like a film camera. And he was kind of like, he wants to shoot it towards, wants it swinging directly into the camera and stuff. And that's all my bag. That early 90s, late 80s Spider-Man artwork is like, it's pucker. It's absolutely pucker. It's a proper my bag, all that stuff, and the 90s was not necessarily the greatest time for comic books necessarily, but I think there was some good stuff in there.
Whereas with movies, it's kind of the opposite. I'd say 90s. I mean, 80s has got some incredible movies. I will say 80s is, I think for me, the 80s is where the turn happens, where the percentage of amazing movies increases. I mean, the volume of movies in general increases, so maybe that's why it feels that way. But you've got like so many of the I mean, you've got obviously Hitchcock and some of the other sort of classics that were before the 80s. But if you ask most people nowadays, top 10 films, probably I'd say 7 or 8 out of 10 are going to be from the 80s onwards, and I imagine that at least 5 of them are going to be in the 80s or 90s themselves. Because I mean, I don't think anyone doesn't have a favorite film that came out in the 90s. When you've got literally 94 is one of the best films. 94 and 99 are two of the best years of film ever. And that's two. You've still got like another, 7 or 8 in that decade. There are so many. So when it comes to those sort of movies and stuff, I find that with comics, it's flipped. But I'm now getting into comics for like, retroactively, because when I was younger, I read the Beano and the Dandy, but only when the Beano wasn't available.
Same here. They did. I remember when I was young, in the kind of, they were still selling them in the newsagents and stuff. There wasn't so many kind of comic book shops as they are now, and that's where you basically get them. I mean, you can still get like the kind of some versions of the comics and British reprints, but they did these British versions of the American reprints, and they have these cardboard covers. There was, I think it was the Sensational Spider-Man, and I think they did Wolverine Unleashed and X-Men something or other. And they were just reprints of like 2 or 3 years before. So they were basically playing catch up. So it was the same comics and stuff. They didn't edit them too much. And there was some letters pages and stuff. But that kind of helped me get into comics as well. So just having that ability to just go up and grab one. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff I was reading that I shouldn't have been reading at such a young age. Like Daredevil, Man Without Fear has got sex, violence, all this sort of like grim and dark. It's a Frank Miller book. So yeah. You're going to get the whole hog with that man. Love him or loathe him, you're going to get it.
Exactly. And it's like because I found brother wasn't really into comic books necessarily. And so because of that, I was watching a lot of films I shouldn't have been. Like my parents always would say to my brother, because Rob is 17 years older than me. So my dad and my two brothers' mum split, and then dad got with my mum. So when that happened, mum and dad said to Rob, they're like, you can show him, as long as you think it's appropriate, you can show him anything, but make sure it's got not too much sex and not too many drugs in. And he was like, okay, that's fine. Cracked the knuckles and be like, right then, Aliens, Predator, lots of random Japanese films, like Versus and things like that. And it's just like all these crazy cool films. Has it got a dude with a giant sword in it? Let's go for it. Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. Let's just do all these ridiculously cool, over-the-top, amazing movies because there's no sex or drugs in them, apart from,
That's interesting, though, isn't it? Like, it's interesting that parents seem to be okay with, and America as well, and kind of the censorship and everything. Extreme violence seems to be okay, but you show, a loving relationship, a loving sexual relationship. Don't show that. Can't possibly show that. Oh no, sex. They might get ideas. It's fucking ridiculous.
We get ideas how they were created. How like 99.99% of all humans are here right now.
Yeah, exactly. It makes, it's bizarre that we have that kind of weird hypocrisy or that dichotomy of like, that's not appropriate, but that is.
I guess it's because if kids go out, if you see people doing drugs or having sex, there's an impression that you're going to go out and do that. If you watch some bloke with a sword try and kill aliens, it's like, well, good luck. Unless you have a very racist understanding of what aliens are, you're not going to have any luck finding them. Not going to have any.
Yeah, I think that's a whole nother discussion.
That is a big discussion. I almost opened up a very big can of worms.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we're going to go down this
get into the precipice.
Rabbit hole.
You're just looking at the edge of the cliff, like, do we want to delve down this, or should we turn back around? I think the field a bit more.
I think we'll leave that potentially spiraling ever and onwards and further down. No, we'll leave that, but. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was kind of the blockbuster age was the 80s, I think. I think obviously arguably Spielberg created them in the 70s, but they kind of really took off in the 80s, and that was that big boom. And then again, the 90s were kind of added to it. And again, now we've got a film out every day, if it's on streaming or iTunes or Amazon or wherever, there's something always being released.
I think we've regressed though somewhat. I think in the 90s was kind of the cream of the crop, where it was the good proportion of great films coming out and being recognized as great films, or at least coming out and then becoming cult classics like Fight Club and things like that. And the turn of the millennia as well kind of worked as well. But then because of the way the cinema is now and stuff, it's kind of like it's quite bad really, but I go to the cinema for basically every Marvel film, most DC films, depending. I do like DC films. Megan isn't as fussed by them, so it kind of depends. But every Marvel film, definitely, obviously every Star Wars film. But then all the kind of in-between stuff, normally we'll go to the cinema with Megan's mum to see a couple of musicals. It's how I saw have you seen Cats?
I've seen the stage. I think I was a baby when the stage show came to Blackpool, which is where I grew up, and apparently I loved it and was dancing along. My friend showed me it a couple of years ago the filmed version of the stage version, and I went, "What the fuck is this?"
You have no idea, mate. The film. Me and Megan. So Megan liked it when she was a kid, and Megan's mum really likes the stage production and the filming of the stage production. And so we went and saw Cats, the film, and we saw it at the cinema. And after about 15 minutes, me and Megan gave each other a look, and then Megan whispered to me after about an hour, she was like, if we weren't here with my mum, we would have left by now. And I was like, I'm glad you feel the same, because it is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And the reason I want to ask is because it seems like the kind of film you would tackle on the Secret Balls, but I'm like, it's one of those films where there's certain films like 1941, which are misguided, and there's that and the other, and there's other films that are like, they're so bad they're good. Like Demons is a good example.
Demons is great, yeah,
so good. Like the special effects, like the physical effects are really good, but everything else is quite bad, which makes it work even better.
It makes fuck all sense, but that's kind of why I love it. It's just I was actually listening to my iTunes on Shuffle today, and Saxon came on. It was like, and I was like, I want to watch fucking Demons again. Brilliant. Again, but I love that. In the show, I don't just want to look at shit films.
No, exactly.
Or so good they're bad. I want to look at stuff that is really obscure or really off the wall. But then I also like to look at, the kind of award-winning stuff on occasion. But I do tend to avoid kind of the Oscars and the award ceremonies and stuff. I've got friends who are into that, but it's not really my bag. And for me, I tend to avoid. I like genre stuff. Like I'm always into my genre stuff. If it's sci-fi, good. Fantasy, whatever. Like it's a crime drama or something like that. If it's got like something about it, I'm more interested. If it's just a drama, I do enjoy a good drama. I enjoy a good rom-com, and all these other different films. Same with like my music taste. I'm a bit of everything.
Oh, I'm the same.
And I was like. But I do tend to gravitate towards certain things. And, if I hear about something, I'll go, yeah, I'm going to watch that. Like purely off like one little thing I've heard about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm watching that. But yeah, I like having that variety and that scope and again, introducing things to people is great. Whether they listen, whether they watch it. I know Jack tries to watch everything, and Paul Mello, who's another fan, he tries to watch everything that I say, and sometimes the stuff I choose is like really difficult to find as well. Like it's really really obscure. You can find it on like a really crappy DVD from 1999 with a cardboard cover, and it's like you go out and find that. But I don't expect everybody to do that. But if they have some fun and they learn something within the podcast, I'm happy as long as they're not. The last thing I want Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls to be is boring. So I hope it's never that. Given the title anyway. But yeah, it's fun to kind of delve into all these different kind of. And again, I think I agree, like 80s is kind of the cornucopia of kind of, you had these insane horror movies. You've got this crazy, like Cannon films and all those kind of action movies, all the stuff on like VHS Strikes Back as well. And, all the stuff kind of like Max Byrne likes and everything like that, all those cheesy Seagal films. I don't like Seagal. I'm sorry, Max. I do not like Seagal.
I've only seen a small amount of stuff that's actually in him. Obviously, he's in Machete, which is an absolutely incredible movie.
Yeah.
And then I saw, because my brother was born in 76, I think he's born only a few weeks away from like Dave. So him and Dave have a lot of similarities. So where I've had, and obviously in Comics in Motion, when before your time, when we did the as an image
before I came along and spoiled everything.
No, you didn't spoil anything, Dan. But before you and Andy and the extended family was here, we did a portrait of all of us as superheroes, and I was Spider-Man. It's
amazing.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And I was Spider-Man in part because he is also my favorite superhero and things, and he connected me to nerd stuff very early on in gaming and etc. But also because I was the youngest one there. And so it's kind of that thing where it's like in Infinity War and Endgame, whereas like all these people who are basically adults, and there's this one kid who gets like a quarter of their references, but he can kind of like, he kind of go there with everyone else. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. Like I've seen more films that you guys talk about than most people my age. So for people my age, like, God, you've seen loads of weird, crazy 80s films. When I talk to anyone who's slightly older, they're like, you've seen a few. You've seen some of the highlights. Not all of them. Not all of the crazy stuff.
You should have seen everything.
Yeah.
But that's that expectation. Like, you haven't seen this. You haven't seen that. And there's a lot of the big ones like I haven't seen. Like,
yeah, same.
I've not seen Goodfellas. I've not seen Casino.
I saw Goodfellas for the first time a few years ago. I watched Godfather for the first time last year.
Yeah, I saw it a few years ago. I've still not seen Godfather 2.
No way.
Like the more someone tells me to watch something, the more I don't want to watch it. And there's a thing in me now a little bit with the Marvel films that it's almost like I'm edgy. I'm a little bit edgy. That I'm like, when I was a kid, I was really into it. I read all the comics, read the Avengers comics, and again, like before Iron Man, these are all like B-list characters. Like in the comic book world, not necessarily. Like the comics would sell enough for them to keep going. Like Daredevil and Iron Man in the 70s and 80s were like the tryout books. They would put new writers and artists on there because they knew it would sell enough, but then it didn't have to do silly numbers, or if it dropped a little bit, it's not gonna affect anything. So they'll just be like, we'll take that writer off, put that on, artist on, we'll do that, we'll do this. But yeah, I was like, I'd love to see this. And, when I saw Infinity War and Endgame, and I was like, you did it. You fuckers did it. I can't believe it. I can't believe you did it. You managed to do this. And it's an achievement. It's a massive cinematic achievement. However you feel about it, it's crazy. But like the because my friend always quite liked that I was into the geeky comic book, kind of like anime and all this other cult films and stuff. And the second Marvel like really hit it big, he went, it's not as special anymore. It's not as like something we've shared together. It's not as unique. Like, and they don't know as much about it. Or they, there's that meme going around where like, they see the Moon Knight trailer and like, I've always been a fan of Moon Knight. Moon Knight is my favorite. I know everything about Moon Knight, And it like, I'm not a gatekeeper, don't get me wrong. I'm like, you can love something, you can, you don't need to know everything about a film. You don't need to know who the actors are I don't know. I tend not to know who the producers or the cinematographers are. And
no, I know directors and actors, and that's normally it for me.
Yeah, like writers sometimes, and composers a lot of the time. I'll notice.
Oh yeah,
a lot.
Music is quite to a degree. It depends. I know a few big names like Hans Zimmer and people like that, but when it comes to like the more more down to earth stuff, so I'm like, yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Hans Zimmer. There's a handful of others.
That'll do. Yeah, and that's it. But I would never like. I think maybe back in the day I was a bit snobbery, but I was initially like I think nowadays I've talked about this, and I won't go into this particular thing because I've gone a bit over on it in the Geek podcast, and kind of like the kind of toxic fandom and stuff, and now it's kind of it's weird because like back in my day, like I'd love to talk to anybody about this stuff, and if anybody would listen, I was like, yeah, I'll go off on one. And I'm still doing it now, 35 years on or 34 years on, however old I am now. 35 in March. There we go.
Funny. My birthday's in March. My birthday's in March as well. I'm 28 in March, though.
Yeah? What day?
16th.
13th.
Oh, funny enough, I have the same birthday as Megan's dad, oddly enough.
Cool.
There's a lot of jokes there that I saw go to your eyes. Thinking,
like daddy issues. Or something.
Yeah, things like that.
I won't go down. I'm a better person than that. I'm more respectful.
I still saw it in your eyes. I still felt it.
I love geek culture, and being part of the Comics in Motion family is really nice. And I found that the Twitter, my very small circle of Twitter that I keep, is really, really good and really, really healthy and nice. And I think if I drift too far out of there, I'm like, no, hate it. People are horrible.
I feel a bit like that as well.
I'm like,
especially with Star Wars stuff. I'm like, there's a lot of cool Star Wars people.
Spider-Man as well. Like the last year.
Get out the shallow. Once you got into the deep end, it's like, it's a bit scary out there.
No, don't like this. Yeah, get out. You dip your toe in and you go, nope, don't like it. I love people, but I also hate them.
I love persons, but I hate people. Because I love individuals generally when you meet them, but when they become group, it's just an anonymous stuff. They just become assholes. And it's like with Star Wars, I know what you mean, because like with the MCU, when it all first started, it was a mammoth hit, but it still was. It was at the cusp of nerd stuff becoming mainstream, and I've always been a massive nerd. Not specifically with comics, but I was more of a video gaming nerd, or I'd read a lot of things, or that sort of stuff as well. But when it came to a lot of other things, with the movies and whatnot, it was really, really cool. And now it's peaks and stuff, and everyone watches it. But now it's kind of gone to the point where a lot of people were watching it, but now people have lost interest. They've drifted away. So now it's kind of like, how much of a nerd are you? But with Star Wars, this makes me sound like an asshole, because I've not said this on the podcast before, I don't think, but it kind of aggravates me how much some people are into Star Wars now when they didn't used to be, which makes me sound like a dick. But let me elaborate, which is like, I'm not a gatekeeper. I want to clarify. Anyone can love Star Wars or Marvel or anything as much or as little as they want to love anything. That's, however much or little people want to invest their time into whatever they want to watch, it's up to them. But it's kind of frustrating where I've always been into Star Wars. I've played Star Wars video games. I've always liked the prequels. Always. I grew up with them. Episode 1 came out in 99. I was 5. So my entire life, I've always had the prequels. I went and saw, I think it was Revenge of the Sith at the cinema. I can't remember if I saw Attack of the Clones, but I remember seeing Revenge of the Sith. So it's like all these things, and I shared the 6 movies with my dad, and he passed away before the 7th was even announced. So that's like a little time capsule of my life. And I had all these, like the lightsabers and the figurines and lots of cool Star Warsy stuff, which I regret getting rid of, probably before 2010, and then, 2015 came around and it's all shot up again. But you get the people who are like, oh yeah, I've always loved Star Wars and stuff, but Mandalorian is the best thing about it. And I'm like, everyone is entitled to their opinion. But if you think Mandalorian is the best thing Star Wars has ever created, then that probably tells me you didn't really like Star Wars that much before Mandalorian. You probably enjoyed it. It was probably like, oh yeah, they're cool movies. You know, kind of how I feel somewhat about a lot of DC stuff. If you told me tomorrow you can never watch a DC film again, I'd be like, okay, well, let me watch Batman, the Batman with Ron Pattinson. After that, I'm not that fussed. I like the movies. I think they're cool, but I'm not that into them. Whereas if you said that about Star Wars, I'd be like, you fucking what? But it's just one of those things where I want to clarify to anyone who loves Mandalorian. You're welcome to. Mandalorian is great. But there's just little elements where it's like, I've always been really into Star Wars, and there's that little part of me when I see it fucking everywhere now. And now when I tell people I like Star Wars, you can see it in a lot of people's eyes. They go, oh, you're like everyone else. And I'm like, no.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree.
And that's what nerd stuff's happened a little bit. And I'm like, I'm really happy people who are nerdy are getting accepted. But on the same token, I'm like, I don't want people thinking I like nerd stuff because everyone else likes nerd stuff. I like nerd stuff and used to get bullied for it. I've gone through the shit. And now that it's in the mainstream and everyone's liking it all hunky-dory, it's like, well, I'm glad that kids growing up now, in theory, don't get bullied as much for being geeks. But equally, I'm kind of feel like my own passions and geekdom are taken away somewhat because they're so in the mainstream. Like, oh, well, you like the Marvel films.
You know what? I agree. I agree to an extent. I do feel like, you know, like I used to, you know, if I talked about this in front of girls or something, it would be considered like, you know, just the unsexiest thing ever. Like
the opposite of an aphrodisiac.
Yes, exactly. Like, let me tell you about Ego, the living planet. And they're like, get the fuck away from me.
How did you get out of my bedroom? Who are you?
See, I do creepy very well. So I think there is an element of that, you know, it's like, again, with you, I'm not gatekeeping. There's something that, like my friend said, it kind of takes that kind of specialness away a little bit. There's something, and again, it's that edgy thing of me where I don't do it. Like I said with you on your podcast, I was like, I didn't watch The Mandalorian because everybody said it was so fucking good. And I know it's going to be good. Like, I didn't watch Jaws for years. And everyone goes, well, it's Jaws, it's popular, it's good. And I'm like, it probably will be very, very good. Do I want to watch it right now? Not particularly. And eventually I got around to Jaws and went, yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah, but it's not something that, like, again, it's like that. Again, I'm not one for peer pressure either. Like, again, it kind of goes back to like, you're wrong. You don't even like football. What the fuck's wrong with you? All that bullshit.
All the time in my life.
Why can't you like football? Why can't you be normal? And I'm like, this is my fucking normal. You can fuck off. I like this. You go do what the fuck you want. And that's it. And it's kind of, again, I think it is that kind of trauma a little bit. It's like it was like, this was what kept me sane. This is something special for me. And then when everyone's like, yeah, it's it's this, and I like this. And I've had people who know less about it than me tell me facts about it that are wrong. And I'm like, oh, you're just getting it. And also what I don't like is the YouTube generation where they've read the Wikipedia, they've watched a YouTube video on it, and they go, right, well, I'm the broad strokes of the story. So, say, for example, like Maximum Carnage, they'll go, well, like you read the Wikipedia, it goes, this happens, this happens, this happens, and this happens. But you don't get those like intimate moments, those revealing character moments. It's not the same. It's like watching a film blindfolded. You're not going to get the same experience as actually reading it. So, and I don't mind, I'm not particularly, I don't worry about spoilers and things. I know there are people out there that do, and that's fair enough. I get it. I understand. But, if I've read a spoiler, I'm like, yeah, but when I read it, I'll experience it and I'll feel different about it. Reading it on a Wikipedia page is nothing. I'll forget that instantly. But if I absorb it and take it in the way it's been designed to, it's been created in such a way for me to ingest that information and enjoy it in such a way. There's so many books I've read that I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew exactly where it's leading, just comic book history, for example. Like, I just know how that ends. I know how Nightfall ends. I know how, Daredevil, the Man Without Fear ends, whatever, like, you name it. I still read it and I still enjoy it and I still get a buzz out of it.
Yeah.
Even, and even certain films that have still spoiled for me, today, like that. I knew that Luke cameo was coming like literally like years before I watched The Mandalorian for Book of Boba Fett. I still enjoyed it. I still got a real kick out of it. And it was a good, thing to enjoy because again, if someone tells me about it, I go, oh. But when I watch it again, it's designed for me to elicit a feeling from me, to grab me and pull me by my heartstrings. And there's something to be said about people enjoying. It's like people enjoying media as a third party. Do you know what I mean? It's like
they're like kind of they've got it on the background and on their phone and not really fully paying attention. Is that what you kind of mean?
Kind of like or you don't watch a show.
Yeah.
Say someone does a review of, I don't know, Batwoman. You watch that review. Yeah. And then you're just like, that is my opinion.
I see exactly what you mean. Yeah. Third party. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And they go, well, I respect him and his opinion. So that is now my opinion, even though they've not watched it.
That's actually one of the reasons I stopped listening to a lot of film review podcasts. I used to listen to, so there's the YouTube channel CinemaSins that people should know because they do the Everything Wrong With videos, which are very clever, and they've got a very clever thing on YouTube. I don't really watch them anymore as much as I used to, but I used to listen to their podcast. I think it's called the Singcast. And the thing is I used to listen to it religiously. I used to love all their content. And then it got to a point where they'd review films I hadn't seen, and then it would taint whether or not I'd watch like a trailer for a film, or I'd hear of a film, like, that sounds cool, and then they shit on it, and I'm going, now, and then it's like, is the film actually bad, or do they just hate it? And then the more you listen, you go, they would hate films I love, and I'm like, do I, like, I've described it in this way, that like with Comics in Motion and VHS Strikes Back, and for example, your show and things, if it's a film I've seen, or a film that I have no intention of seeing, I'll happily listen to almost anything. When it's the in-between, if it's someone like, I know what kind of films Jack likes, I know what kind of films Chris and Dave respectively like, and I know that, depending on who says what and what the criticisms are, will give me a vague idea of what I will think of the film to a degree. But I also want to know what these guys think because I'm friends with them and I want to know their opinions on things. Sure. When it's a random stranger on the internet, I'm never going to talk to them. Their opinion doesn't make any difference to me. And also then it can kind of taint things a little bit. Yes. And I've had arguments before where it aggravates me a bit. And this happens in the comic book world and things. And I understand where people come from to a degree. But when people have a strong opinion on a film they haven't seen, and it really, sorry to be, if anyone's listening who's one of these people, it really fucks me off. Because I'm like, you can have an opinion to a degree on it looks like they've done this, or oh, I heard they did this and it changed that. It's like, yeah, but you don't know how this change or that change has actually impacted the film. It's all well and good saying, oh, they changed this thing about Batman. It's like, okay, yes, if you look at this one sentence and say, for example, if they made Batman's suit white, for example, I know that would be, contrary to his whole thing, but if they said, oh, I'm not watching the new Batman film, he's got a white suit in it, and I go, okay, now that sentence makes it sound like they've ruined Batman. If you watch the movie and there's one scene where he's wearing a white suit and there's a genuine actual reason for it, like he was hunting someone in the day, for example, and it actually made more sense for him to be white than black because of one reason or another. In the context, that works, and that is then sometimes, especially with trailers and things, they make a big fuss about certain things, and it's in the film for like 18 seconds. It's like bloody Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom, whereas like Jeff Goldblum's narrating the trailer, and then in the film he's actually in it almost less than he's in the goddamn trailer, and you're like, why did you even put him in there? I thought Jeff Goldblum was going to be a big part of this film, and he's not. And it's just little things like that where I find if you're going to have a true opinion on something, you either have to have done like a ridiculous amount of research. If it's like a problematic movie or something, it's slightly different. Yeah. But it's when like I struggle because sometimes I want to have film conversation with people and they go, oh, have you seen this film? Have you seen this film? Have you seen this film? And I'm like, I've only seen one of those films, which I'm happy to talk about. But the other one, I don't want my thoughts being tainted too much. I want to watch it and try and go in without too much expectation. And I think that's where the spoilery stuff bothers me more.
Well, I think you can say, I don't like the look of that.
Yeah.
But if you see a trailer and you go, I don't like the look of that. For example, I'm not really looking forward to the Morbius film with Jared Leto. I don't think it looks good.
Yeah.
However, I can't say it's a shit film because I've not seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be the greatest film ever made. I doubt it.
I doubt it too.
I said to Max, it's not often I'll miss it. Like, Max is really good. He's really passionate. We'll go see anything. And I really appreciate that about him. But even I was like, sometimes I spend a bit too much time with Andy and he's like, it looks shit, I hate it, blah, 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 blah. And, but he will still watch it. Like, as angry or as shit as something is, he will go, like, and I respect Andy for going and sitting down. Like, all the stuff I bring to him as well, he will sit down and watch it. And he does have opinions on stuff, and they're strong opinions. And I think what you were saying as well about, you don't want it to taint a certain film. Like, Andy's reviews, sometimes I'll leave until I've seen the film, until I've thought about it, take some time to think and go, how do I feel? Because you come out of the cinema and you go, that was the greatest film I've ever seen. And then 2 weeks later you go, wait a minute, they tricked me. You're like, that was rubbish. I came out of Eternals and I went, it was fine. It was good. And then I went, hold on a second. They bamboozled me.
I call it cinema syndrome. There's a lot of films I see and I go, and someone says, what do you think of the film? I go, I thought it was brilliant. And they go, did really? And I go, I think that's how I felt. And then you think about it, go, actually, I was just wrapped up in the world now, all the comfy seats and the really cool sound and stuff. I mean, I still like Eternals. I think it's a good movie. But I think it's probably about half an hour too long. There's far too much exposition in it, and the main character is boring as all fuck. And Jon Snow didn't need to be in it. But I still enjoyed it. But once again, I'm a shill where I'm like, if I enjoy something, I will still defend it while simultaneously criticizing it. But sorry, you were saying.
I love poking fun out of stuff I love. Like, I've been, I've been showing you, I've been trolling my sister with all these Disney films I've been watching and stuff and making fun of them, and she's like, stop ruining Disney, you prick. And I'm like, but I loved it. I love all the Disney stuff, and I appreciate the Disney stuff, and even the controversial stuff, and the inappropriate stuff. It's like, it's just part of that history and that culture, and it's important that we remember these things to not repeat those mistakes in the future. And I would lovingly poke fun at all my favorite kind of films, and all the best films I'll still poke fun at. It's not that I hate them. I'll poke fun at anything, within a degree, obviously. But speaking of like people like just saying things look shit, I remember a friend of mine at the time, he saw the Civil War trailer, Captain America Civil War, and Spider-Man rocks up. Yeah. And he's obviously at the end of the trailer, he goes like, Underoos, jumps in, steals the shield and goes like, hello guys, or whatever he says. Hi everyone, I think it was. And he went, nah, look shit. And I'm like, why? He was like, right. One, why is he so young? I went, well, he's 15 in the comics when he becomes Spider-Man. Why are his eyes moving? In the comics, his eyes move to express emotion. It doesn't necessarily make much sense, but that's just how they show what he's experiencing through those eyes. That's just something they do. So they've obviously taken that. His suit looks weird. Well, they're obviously going for a different look. It's a very Alex Ross-inspired look, that costume. And again, I was just like, I hate saying this, but I'm like, read a fucking comic, man. like it's a comic book. That's there's an issue I slightly have as well with the new intro they have for the Marvel films, the Marvel Studio, because it used to be like the flipping of the comic book pages, which I loved because like that's where it's coming from. That's where, and even now Kevin Feige is still reading the most up-to-date comic books to steal ideas from and put in the film. Like he's still reading, he's still going back to the source, which is the important thing. And now that new intro, you have like not even a second and a half worth of comic book flipping pages until it turns into the sketch work and the production art and everything like that, and then it becomes the characters in clips from the film. I get it, but I was kind of like, you're not kind of like respecting, like even now they don't pay the artists and the writers. They give them a nice little thanks on the credits. Like Ed Brubaker, who created The Winter Soldier, brought Bucky back from the dead. He didn't create Bucky, but he brought him back, and the idea of giving him the arm and everything. He got paid more for the cameo in the film than he did for creating and coming up with that idea and that storyline.
My lord.
Which is insane to me. And he's like top tier, he's a novelist as well. I think he's working on the newest Maniac Cop, or maybe that's not happening now, I'm not sure, whatever, but it's crazy to me. But I was like again, you've not even given it a chance. Like you were saying, like, but if Batman was in a white suit, he was like, this Spider-Man is totally different from all the other Spider-Man we had before. And look at what we have now with No Way Home. People are going, this is the best film of all time and this is the greatest thing and I can't believe they managed it and things like that. But again, without that small little introduction, but again, people were so quick to write shit off. Like straight away, people are so quick to write something off. Again, I promised. I made a promise with Max, so we are going to see Morbius together. I said the only way you're going to get me to see Morbius is if we go together. And he went, deal. So whenever that fucking film comes out, we're going.
Yeah, I remember
I think it's April Fool's. I think it's out.
I don't know, because it was one of those things, isn't it, whereas like certain films me and Megan have spoken about, it was like they kind of come as a surprise because we're like, you're paying attention to it, and there's, it's been delayed. Like Let Them Be Carnage, which I know that I'm going to be appearing on the Spider-Dan, the Secret Wars, and we're going to talk about Maximum Carnage, Absolute Carnage, and Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
All of the Carnages.
Vastly different interpretations of Carnage. Well, one of them is. But we'll get into that on your show. Yes. But with those sort of films, it was like, Let There Be Carnage. It was like, it's going to be coming out in this year, and they got delayed. And I was like, it's not going to come out 2021 at all. We're not going to see it for years. It's going to come out. It's going to be an absolute mess, and it's going to be unwatchable, which is different opinions. I didn't think it was. That was great. But then it was just kind of like a month, like 6 weeks. And then 6 weeks before release, I was like, oh, here's a trailer. And you're like, what? Oh, it's coming out soon. So, what? Wait, what? I don't have time. Like, I need to make space in my goddamn calendar. What? I need, cinema now, it used to be when I was a single man with nothing to fucking do. It was like, I used to go with my mate Alex and my mate Callum. We'd get Limitless cards and just go to sometimes 3 times a week, just see almost everything that was out for ages. Especially at Halloween, it's great because you can just watch all the horror films. And horror films are probably like, I love horror films, but they are the least consistent film genre there is, in a sense of I'd say the rom-coms are probably the most consistent because almost every rom-com is between a 6 and 8 out of 10. It's very hard to find any that are outside of that. And with horror, it's like, you could watch 3 horrors in a row, and it could be a 1 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, and a 4 out of 10, and you could look at them all and think they're all going to be brilliant or all going to be terrible. And some can just really surprise you. There's some brilliant indie films that you would never think are good, are genius, and there's big budget ones that are wank. And it's just, there's no consistency to horror. It's hilarious and brilliant. Yeah. But with that, like, when we would go to see all these films and stuff, I'd have so much time. But now it's like, with me and Megan, she doesn't want to see every film I want to see at the cinema, and I'd almost go watch anything because I just love the cinema experience. But now it's just like, we have jobs and stuff, and I work from home 2 days a week. She's a teacher and stuff, and she normally gets home like 4:30-ish. Whereas when I work from home, I finish at 5. If I'm not working from home, I don't get home till near 6. Well, if we have to go to the cinema, the nearest cinema is a 15-minute drive. There's like, from where I live, there's every type of cinema. There's View, Picture House, Odeon, Showcase, Cineworld, all of them, all within 15 minutes. But it's still a 50-minute drive there, parking, whatever, get into the cinema, blah, blah, blah. 50-minute drive home, 20 minutes, half an hour of adverts, then minimum 2 hours for the movie. So the whole evening is gone. It's a 4-hour job, 3 to 4 hour job for each film you see. And for that, it's just like, it's such a huge time. And if you watch one a week, that's a lot of time gone. So with me and Megan, a lot of films come out, and I'm just like, my thing is basically every Marvel film for a while. When we eventually have kids, is probably when I'm going to start giving up on it. But it's like, for the time being, and that's not going to be for many years, but it's like, at the moment, it's like, while I can, I'm going to try and see every movie that comes out of Marvel. And Morbius came out, and I was like, I will watch that because I'm more interested in what they're going to do with Blade. And Morbius is probably going to be an anti-hero or a team-up or something with Blade. He's going to have some sort of connection, most likely. And obviously, I'm the original Blade first 2 films. That's the third one, but the first 2 are just phenomenal movies. Yeah. And it's just like with Morbius, it's like it's part of the Sony verse, but it's also because the Sony verse is MCU canon in some ways. It's that kind of weird thing where it's like Venom is in a different universe, but Morbius might be in the MCU. And Spider-Man is...
There's all these these multiversal films.
I'll clarify, minor spoilers for Venom Let There Be Carnage, just to clarify into this conversation.
And No Way Home as well.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't already seen
But go watch it if you haven't. Fuck me.
Please,
such a good movie.
Please go and see that. But yeah, there's all this graffiti stuff that's going on, because there's Batgirl's coming out, and that's supposed to have Keaton in it. Spoilers. Potentially, but then also like the graffiti in Morbius is the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in the graffiti, and but then the Vulture is supposed to be in it as well from the Tom Holland MCU stuff.
Homecoming.
So it's like, but then you've also got Oscorp that looks like from the Andrew Garfield films in the same film, and you're like, what the fuck is happening here? I have no idea. So I'm just gonna, like, again, based on that, have to now go and see it to make any sense of that bloody trailer, really.
Yeah, but it's like, it's not something high up on the list. It's just like, there's a lot of, it's like Eternals. I saw that and I was like, yeah, it looks okay. And I watched one trailer, I was like, meh. And then I watched another trailer, I was like, that actually looks really cool. But then I saw the runtime, I was like, uh-oh. You know, when it's longer than Infinity War, you've got some big boots to fill, and didn't quite. But with all these films that are coming out, especially because, you know, Black Widow, which surprised me, I thought I was surprisingly enjoyable, mainly because Florence Pugh is phenomenal.
Best thing in it.
Both one of the most beautiful people I think I've ever seen, but also one of the most talented actors, and everything I've seen her in, be it Midsummer, Little Women, Black Widow, she is amazing. And it's just like, all these shows and the MCU shows and all this other stuff, it's like, for the moment, I can handle all this MCU stuff because most of my focus at the cinema or whatever, or TV watching, is basically Star Wars and MCU. That's my main thing. Megan's is Bake Off and Drag Race. So I've got an encyclopedic knowledge of drag queens in all the different drag races, and I know a lot about Bake Off. But like, there are kind of main things, and all the other stuff kind of gets put to the side a little bit. But if it wasn't for the shared universe, I wouldn't be, half the MCU films that are coming out, I wouldn't really be that fussed by. But because I'm kind of like, while I'm riding the wave of being able to consume all MCU content at the moment, excluding Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Inhumans, those can fuck off. I didn't even try Inhumans. I Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think I tried one episode and I was like, it's kind of boring. And a friend of mine was like, yeah, I've watched all 7 series. It really picks up around series 4. And I was like, well, so I have to watch, 3 series of 24 episodes? That's like 18 hours per season.
However, I heard the same thing about the Clone Wars, the animated series as well. And I was like, do I want to start it from the beginning? And I know it's all out of order as anyway. Like all the episodes. I did, like, I went online and someone like put it all in chronological order, and I went, that's too much effort. I
didn't even do that. When I showed Megan, I actually went through and cherry picked. I say to anyone listening who hasn't yet watched Clone Wars, okay, skip all of series 1 and skip the movie. The movie's wank. Skip all of series 1 except for the 5th episode, Lair of Grievous. I think one of the first episodes called Rookies, and then there's the last 4 episodes, which is the Ryloth stuff and the finale. Everything else you can just skip. It's not, and series 2 there's like a few Jar Jar things you can skip. Aside from that, most of it, like most of series 2 is pretty good.
No,
then
I
series
think Jar Jar is integral. All the Jar Jar stuff is integral.
But Clone Wars only 20 minutes per episode though, at least.
True. Yeah, there is that. I like one of the weirdest episodes for me was when the C-3PO and R2-D2 have a spa day.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what is this? and that one right at the end where like Jar Jar like gets his rocks off.
Oh yeah, when Mace Windu's just
priestess.
Yeah, and she's this really powerful, influential woman, and Mace Windu's just kind of there, like, why is she like Jar Jar so much? Like, what's the appeal?
Because she'll only speak to Jar Jar, and he's like, why will she only speak to Jar Jar? And it's like, for some reason, she's attracted to Jar Jar. But there you go. You know, opposites attract, I guess. But yeah, it's like I watched all of Inhumans. I binged all of it. I think I watched it in a day or 2 days because I was working from home, and I went, I can't be arsed working, so I just turned it on. I was like, this is just going to happen. And I like the Inhumans. I like those characters. Again, very obscure kind of...
Yeah, I know nothing about them at all.
Background kind of characters. Like when I watched Encanto, there was some kind of Inhuman-esque elements to it. And I was like, oh, it's a little bit like Inhumans. They're very much not the X-Men. And I know Marvel have tried to make them the X-Men. And it doesn't work. It never will work. You can't make the Eternals the X-Men. You can't... The Eternals and the Inhumans have more in common than the X-Men, Inhumans, or the Eternals. Like, it's not the same. And I don't know why they're trying to fit that square peg in a round hole. Just don't do it. Don't bother. Because there's a lot of problematic stuff within their culture and the way the isolationist nation and stuff. And yeah, but they fucking just screwed the pooch with the characters. I was saying to Max on our WhatsApp, I was saying that because there's a rumor that he's going to come back and in a future MCU film,
right?
And I was like, well, it can't be that version because that version. So in the comics, he's this uber powerful character. He has a voice that can shatter mountains.
Who is this person?
Black Bolt.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, I think I heard about the Black Bolt potential movie or series coming out. I think I've heard rumors of that.
There is something going around. So Black Bolt he's the king of the Inhumans. He's basically the Inhumans are an ancient race of humanity and very highly advanced. and they were basically exposed at the teenage years to this mist, and it gives them, it could kill them, it could give them wings, it could, they could turn massively fat, or nothing could happen at all. It's absolute pot luck. Black Bolt gets his powers, he can't speak, and he accidentally liquefies his parents by saying the word no, which is in the show as well. They use that in the show. It's not very good, not the way they do it. But yeah, he ends up, and then he swears never to speak again. He uses sign language. He's as strong as like the Hulk. He is like top tier, like god level, like Thor, Hulk, you name it. That's kind of strength level. In the show, he gets beat up by 3 coppers.
Right.
So I was like, I saw that in the trailer, and again, I reacted a little strongly to the trailer. But again, I did eventually go and watch it. I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to sit down and watch and see if it is as bad as people have said, or if it's as disappointing. And it was, How
many episodes was it?
I think it's like 7. It is on Disney Plus.
I'm not going to watch it. No, I'm not going to watch it. Just to clarify.
Yeah, I think I could see what they were trying to do, and I could see elements from the comic. There's a really good run by Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee in the early 2000s. It's like a 12-issue maxi series, and that is all you need to know really about the Inhumans. They're really, really cool characters, unique. But yeah, they just absolutely just butcher them. Just like, and again, they were supposed to be in the movie. They announced they were going to do a movie.
Yeah,
and what happened was there was a gap in the TV schedule. And I think it was like Patriots Day or something. And they said, you have to make something, and we'll do a cinema release of the first 2 episodes. But you've got to make it within 6 weeks.
Jesus.
And they got the director or showrunner from Iron Fist, which obviously a very well-lauded, well-reviewed show. And they went, awful. We know you can turn around shit quick to get this done. And they did it really on the cheap, really shit. Bad CGI and everything, and the actors are trying, but the stuff they're working with is not good. The only thing I liked is Lockjaw, which is effectively the
dog.
Yeah, he's a giant kind of bulldog. He's got a little antenna. He can teleport. That's basically it. And he was the best thing in it.
Yeah, that is quite problematic, and it's one of those things where it's annoying how many projects and how many things get ruined by producers and by studios and people not being given ample time to breathe. Yeah, I mean, 6 weeks is nothing. Like I've filmed, edited, and put together a music video in more time than 6 weeks. Granted, I didn't spend my entire, it wasn't 6 pure weeks. It was, evenings when I could and stuff. Sure. But that is so rough, and it's so unfortunate for the characters and for that, because then Inhumans, is that ever going to get another chance? Because, I think with the MCU, obviously the next phase of the MCU is multiversal stuff, and they're going to bring in Fantastic Four. I think the guy who I should really say to Tonya, don't listen anymore, because I'm going to start talking about, because
we're just
Tonya. Sorry, Tonya.
Never listen to anything I'm on, because I'll ruin everything.
She's already aware of you in the Discord channel.
I feel like I'm never going to live this down now. I'm like the spoiler, because I'm just. Well, I'll be honest. I didn't really know the rules. I'll be honest.
What are the rules?
What are the rules?
I'm glad you got that. Was the Sunny reference, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. I'm very glad you got that reference. Well, I haven't watched the new series yet.
I watched it. I watched a few episodes. It's okay. It's not. I don't think it's top tier, but there's some good episodes there.
I think the season with the water park is the best season, and I think from there it's just gone down slightly. But anyway, mild spoilers for certain future MCU stuff. So obviously they're doing multiverse stuff, obviously with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, with what happened in WandaVision, etc. And then Fantastic Four is going to be like, I think, the mid crescendo. That's going to be, we're probably going to get an Avengers team up kind of movie, and I imagine they're either going to pop up at the end of that or in there, and then we'll get the Fantastic Four solo movie. That'll be the middle stuff, and then by then we're going to find out who the big bad is, be it Mephisto or I know it's going to be Kang, isn't it? Obviously because of Loki. Very much spoilers, and
especially spoilers for Loki.
Yeah. So with all that in mind, like the next phase, and I feel like then towards the end of that, they're probably going to try and get X-Men in some way, because there's a lot of rumblings going on of how they're going to canonize X-Men and stuff. And then that's probably going to be the third sort of chapter. So we've got the Infinity War saga, multiverse saga, then the multiverse stuff. It's probably going to allow the X-Men to be a thing. And then I imagine, I'm just thinking, I mean, this is not going to be, I mean, the first, the Infinity War was at like 10 more than 10 years, wasn't it? How long? It was 2008 to 2000.
Yeah, 2008 till about, 2019, maybe?
Yeah, so it's like 11 to 12 years. So the rate they're churning them out now, I imagine will probably be about another 7 years by the time we're at the next one. So, I mean, I'm going to be like mid-30s. Well,
dead. You're going to be dead. We'll all be dead. We're not going to live very long.
Probably not, no. But then the next phase is probably going to be X-Men. But like, I'm probably going to be, 40 by the time that sort of stuff happens. It's like,
how... Are you going to be bothered?
Well, I don't know, because
are we gonna do you think there's gonna be a superhero fatigue? Because even I think, as much as I love superheroes, sometimes I'm like, the last thing I want to do is watch another fucking superhero thing.
I'm at the moment where we're at right now. Megan is definitely getting it, but at the moment it's manageable for most people because it's no more than one a week in general. Now I know, like, I never got into the DC stuff because with one, I don't care about DC characters even a quarter as much as Marvel characters. I've always grown up with Marvel games and the Spider-Man games. Obviously, Spider-Man gets so interconnected with all the other stuff, and so does X-Men. So you play X-Men and Spider-Man games, like a quarter of the main characters in the Marvel universe who are the big hitters and stuff. And so with DC, I never really had that amount. I knew about Batman and stuff, but I never got into DC as much. So when all those the Arrowverse stuff came out, and it was about 24 fucking episodes of series, like 7 series of stuff.
I gave up. Like I was pretty committed. Like I watched Arrow first 2 seasons, 3, even 4, I think, and then Flash I enjoyed more as a show. I watched a bit of Legends and then into Supergirl, and then me and Andy we watched like The Crisis, but I turned off years, and he and Natalie carried on, and I was like, yeah, Crisis is good, that'll do.
Well, the thing is, it's 24 episodes of series, and you just think that is to what if you watch an episode every day, that's basically a month is about a series. So you think you could watch 12 series in a year, thereabouts. Well, between Arrow and Flash, there's more than that, just those two. And you're like, and also, whereas the MCU shows, the Marvel Disney Plus shows, what they've done very cleverly is they're all between, like, obviously WandaVision is 9 episodes, but they're like 20 minutes long each, half an hour. But generally it's like 6 to 8 episodes. And I was like, that's perfect, because that is basically just a month and a half, once a week, you have to find an hour-ish for once a week, which is really manageable at the moment. And although Megan's complained a little bit about it, having every week having one thing, fortunately, Drag Race has been 1 a week or 2 a week, so it kind of evens out. But it's just, when they're going to get to a point where there's going to be more than that happening. And the problem is, I think we spoke about this, it might have been in the finale of the Boba Fett chat, where it's just like, where... The entry level is so hard. If I had kids tomorrow, if I birthed a 10-year-old tomorrow and they went, Daddy, I want to watch all the MCU films and everything MCU, I'd be like, it's going to be about 6 months before you even get up to date. And by that time, we'll have already had Moon Knight and potentially Ms. Marvel and then Love and Thunder, Thor, and then also Doctor Strange. And if you count Morbius and that sort of stuff as well. So you're just like, it's so hard to catch up, and I feel like with the fatigue in itself, I'm enjoying it because it's manageable. 1 a week is easy to do, and that's just because I'm focusing just on the MCU stuff. But I think that this phase is really going to show people are not as interested. It's going to delve a bit, and then I think what they're going to do is maybe what I say phase, this saga is going to be where people start to dwindle.
Whatever you want to call it.
It's because there's the 4 phases of the Infinity War saga. Basically until Kang gets killed, inevitably. When that kind of happens, I think at that point, everyone's going to care a lot less. But I don't know if Disney are going to have the foresight to be like, okay, let's rein it in. Let's make this the final MCU thing we do for a while. They're never probably going to do that. But let's do this. And let's, instead of having 4 phases and 2 movies every year and 3 series every year, we're going to rein it right back. Let's just have 1 movie a year, 2 series a year. Just have a summer movie and then have a series sort of October-y time and like February-ish time. And that'll be it. If they did that and reined it back, I think they draw a lot more people in. But who knows if they're going to do like a big reset, because they do that quite a lot in comics, don't they?
I was gonna say, I think one of the reasons why I like Marvel more than DC. I like DC. I appreciate DC, and think there's a lot to like about the DC universe. If you look for the right things and pick and choose what you're into, and eventually you kind of learn. But I think it's harder in a way. DC try and make it easier for you to start from point zero. They hit the reset button almost every 4 years. I think they just go, right, new continuity, start again, new continuity. We'll keep that. We'll throw the rest out. Marvel only really hit the reset button once. back in 2015 with
Was that? Sorry.
Secret Wars. Yeah, the 2015 version of Secret Wars. They basically hit the reset button, combined a lot of the universes, much like the first time DC did it in 1985 with the Infinite Crisis on Infinite Earths. So many Earths, so many crises. But that was always my issue. Is like, well, where do I start now? Do I start at Infinite, Crisis on Infinite Earths, or do I do 0 Hour, or do I do Infinite Crisis, or do I do all the different resets? And it's like, well, just give me a good story. Just what's good in whatever continuity. So I'm not really that bothered with the continuity of that. They go, well, we have to throw out all these ideas. We have to throw out this, and we want to tell these different kind of stories. It can work hitting a reset button, and I think they will do that. I think it has to, because like I watched Black Widow and I was like, you're already fucking up your continuity now. I said to Andy, I was like, if you pull at Black Widow, it all comes apart. If you pull at that little continuity thread, it will all come apart for you. I won't do it for people. I'm not going to ruin that film for people. I don't think it's a bad film. There was a couple of things I was just like, it could have been better.
Yeah.
And again, it was one of those where I was like, yeah, it was all right. And then I was like, wait a minute. You've done it again.
I mean, I enjoyed the characters of Black Widow. I thought it was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be, but it was completely unnecessary. Apart from introducing Yelena, who is amazing, it was completely unnecessary, and I feel like that film suffered a lot from when it was released. If that film was what we got, if instead of Captain Marvel, we got Black Widow, that film would be held in much higher regard, I think, because it would bring a lot more weight to Black Widow, and also Captain Marvel was quite crap.
Well, yeah, and like the thing is, I love Captain Marvel. I wrote back when I was doing the Nerdified podcast with Dan Keatis, who's a guest on my show quite a bit, and he's coming up again. Like I wrote this, I binged Captain Marvel comics, like Carol Danvers comics, be it Ms. Marvel or Captain Marvel. I did the gamut of years and years of her like solo run, various solo runs, and I fell in love with that character even more than I ever thought I could, and wrote this whole article, and people started commenting and stuff, and it was one of the. I'm not a writer really, I'll say that, but dyslexic for a start, so I'm like a bit like that. So, and like Dan had to edit quite a lot. He's like, oh God, you don't even know how to use full stops. It's like shit like that. Like, your punctuation's awful. But he's a great editor, and he made me sound actually clever, which I'm not really. And I was so geared up for that, and it really did not grab me the way I wanted it to. But the reason why Captain Marvel came so late, and Black Widow came even later, was Ike Perlmutter was in charge of the Marvel kind of like, that was his thing. He was like the head of that, and he didn't believe that minority characters or women could carry films.
Oh Christ!
So that was basically what he said. He was like, they don't sell. That was his excuse, and lo and behold, Captain Marvel makes $1 billion. Black Panther makes $1 billion. So he's absolutely been proven wrong. But that, unfortunately, is why they came so late. Kevin Feige actually was like, let's get this out now. Let's do this. Let's do that. And he just couldn't, because he had no real creative control. And only now does he have that creative control. And Perlmutter, I think he's come back into. He was in an article recently going, they're ruining it. They're doing it all wrong. Or something, but yeah, that was basically who was in charge. So that's why that Black Widow film came out when it should have come out much earlier, unfortunately. Yeah, and I think that, and also because she died, it's kind of like it's almost like that prequelitis type thing where it's
I was going to say
you already know where this is heading. So, and
I was like, oh, Black Widow, I get an origin story, and it's like, no, you don't really. You get like maybe a flashback or two, and then you get this origin story that doesn't really fit or make any real sense or work, and then you have a character who dies, but not in this film, so they survive. So you go, oh, maybe spoiler alert. So you think maybe some of the other characters are going to die. Oh no, everyone makes it out, apart from even Taskmaster, who isn't even close to what Taskmaster should be. And I'm not even a fucking Taskmaster. I barely know anything about Taskmaster, but what I do know is not that. And it's one of those things with the continuity and the kind of resetting stuff that I find, which is with comics, I found it quite a lot. I mean, Marvel Unlimited, I want to say, I can't say enough good things about Marvel Unlimited. I fucking simp for Marvel Unlimited. I don't give a flying fuck. I found it so goddamn helpful. As someone who's entering the comic world so late, you know, Star Wars was quite easy for me because I got in only a year or two after the canon reset. So I've managed to, generally speaking, keep up to date with all the canon stuff. But go back to Legends, it's like, trying to think about that. But with Marvel and all that sort of stuff, like, I want to read for Absolute Carnage, and I'll get into this when we do a full conversation about it and stuff. But like for Absolute Carnage, I was like, okay, I want to read I read Maximum Carnage, Maximum Carnage, and I was like, he's a really cool character. I've always loved symbiotes. Venom's always been basically my favorite cartoon animated comic thing ever. Since I saw him in the Spider-Man games on PS1, I was like, he is so cool. Played Ultimate Spider-Man. What a game that is. And I was like, I love symbiote stuff. So I've been trying to read as much Venom and Carnage. And that's why I basically was like, I'm going to read every appearance of Carnage that I can find on Marvel Unlimited. And in doing that, I started with Maximum Carnage, because I think that's when he basically first comes into it properly. But then I went through sort of the other stuff from there. And that was really fine. That was good. And I could get through that. But there's a point where he, in Amazing Spider-Man 800, and I was like, okay. So I started reading that, and it did the Red Goblin story arc, which is, of course, Green Goblin combines with the Carnage symbiote, which I thought was a really interesting idea, and it's really cool. But you start that, and it's like, it's 5 issues, and the first issue or something, it references a character who appeared in Amazing Spider-Man like 400 and something or what, and I was like, who the fuck is this? I had to look up on. I use the fandom app because that's got Wikipedia on it. Which is a godsend.
Same here. That's what I would do with if I'm looking for specific stories of characters. That's where I'd go, because it just lists them chronologically.
Exactly, and I go there. But for some of them, they were the storyline was so complex. I just went on normal Wikipedia, because that's basically the normie version. You go on like the nerd. You go on fandom, and you go on the Marvel element of the fandom Wikipedia. And it's like, here is 1 million pages on the history of Spider-Man. You try and find out who Ben Reilly is, and it's impossible. But if you go on Wikipedia, the normal basic bitch version, and you type in Ben Reilly, you get about 4 paragraphs from people who don't really know that well, but know enough to explain it to someone. You go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so is that sort of thing where I was like, it was such an ocean of things, and I now my Marvel knowledge now from just reading just Carnage stuff, and then by proxy I did the Road to Absolute Carnage, and therefore I read a lot of Venom stuff. From doing that, my understanding of stuff is so much more, because like the Maker appears in it, which was like the ultimate version of Reed Richards, who goes evil and stuff, and I'm like, who the fuck is what? And then you look into it and it goes, oh yeah, you know when Marvel did that whole kind of resetting the canon, doing everything as ultimate. And I'm talking to the audience, I know you know, but like, and it's like, oh, we're kind of resetting the canon, let's do ultimate blah, blah, blah. And almost all of it flopped, aside from like a small handful.
Well, Spider-Man was successful, the Spider-Man version. But then, Ultimates was.
Tell me about that, because I'm intrigued by the Ultimate Universe. I read Ultimate Spider-Man, the comics. I read the Carnage appearance. I read quite a lot of that, and a lot of the Ultimate Spider-Man has influenced the Spider-Man movies today. Like a lot of modern Spider-Man is actually a lot of like now we've branched out a lot more. Sort of if you ask me like maybe 10 years ago, most of it seemed to be from Ultimate, but now it's branched out to a lot more of the non-Ultimate stuff. But I found that so much of it. So I'm interested by the Ultimate Marvel stuff.
So that was kind of Marvel, again, doing a bit of a DC thing, going, we want to keep the original continuity, but we want to attract new readers in a modern way and do modern kind of storytelling. And Ultimate Spider-Man, and they did Ultimate X-Men, and then they branched off into the Ultimates and various other things. And that went on for years and years and years. And again, I've not read a lot of it because it's not really my bag. But a lot of the designs and the ideas and the modernization of it, like Nick Fury, like Sam Jackson version of Nick Fury is from that universe. Before that, he was an old kind of World War II war dog type character, and they kind of married a few other versions together to get the most popular version, which is the Sam Jackson version. Miles Morales came from the Ultimate Universe as well. Like you said, that version of Reed Richards, who is evil. It's an evil version. And they did do an ultimatum storyline where they killed everything off. But effectively, like if you watch the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, so it's not a radioactive spider, it's a genetically engineered spider. Where did they get that from? The 2001 Ultimate Spider-Man #1. You know, they went, we need to update this to a point.
Yeah.
Like we still want the feel and the characters and everything to be in line with that, but we need to make it not sound quite as hokey or it can't be radiation, and because that was it. It was very much the atomic age, like what the horrors of radiation. We have the Hulk and cosmic rays and all that sort of stuff. But now it's like, it's all these different scientists, like these genetic splicing and things like that. It's like those are the horrors, and the cloning, and those are the new scientific potential horrors that could occur. So it was just that, and obviously the characters speak more like modern parlance, and it's just the 2001 Spider-Man. What if Spider-Man was here now in this age, and how would it be? And those early films are very much more like the 60s version, but they cherry pick what they want from that, like the Osborn stuff and Oscorp and the spiders being from Oscorp and all that other stuff. That's all kind of linked together, but it's just that really. And the Ultimate Spider-Man is really interesting because it's very dialogue heavy. It's not like there is action and stuff, but there's your average kind of arc in that is basically like Brian Michael Bendis writes the whole thing, and one of my favorite artists who you'll be familiar with is Mark Bagley, who draws it. And again, they do the entire run. They do the longest run on Ultimate Spider-Man that two creators have ever done since Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did on the Fantastic Four. So wow. That's an achievement in itself, to say that they've stuck together and not fallen out, or the book hasn't fallen off the sales or anything like that. So it's probably worth hunting down. And I've read some of it. I was going through Marvel Unlimited, but eventually I wasn't reading as much Marvel Unlimited. So I said, you know what, I'll just buy from Comixology whenever I want, or get a physical version when I really want to read something. But yeah, I think if you like Spider-Man, there's something there for you. It's something realistic and modern. Not everyone's going to go and read those Steve Ditko, Stan Lee issues, because they can be a bit of a slog. Like they're not bad, but they can. It's a very much a dated form. There's a lot of dialogue. Like it's very structured. It's like 3 panels, another 3 panels, another 3 panels. And they're all chock full of dialogue, and it can take you like maybe half an hour to 45 minutes to read it sometimes. If you're going to really actually sit down and read it. And again, they're absolute classics. They're amazing. They're great. And they are amazing, spectacular, whatever you want to call them. And I love the old stuff, and I respect that. But comic books have come a long way, and the writers are letting the visuals speak for themselves a lot more nowadays. There's barely any dialogue in comics anymore. To its greatness, to its improvement. You don't, like Chris Claremont, who wrote X-Men, was just always describing every fucking panel, and you're like, I can see the art. It's fine. I don't need Tolkien, levels of description of a moon base. I can see it. It looks good.
Well, that's one of the things that I found, because when I got Marvel Unlimited, I was I'm going to read loads of stuff, and going through, I'm like, there is not enough time in the world. If I didn't have a job, I could go through Marvel Unlimited, and I wouldn't scratch the surface before I die. And so I'm just like, okay, I have to cherry pick Venom, Carnage, a few Spider-Man things, and then when I'm now planning, Moon Knight is next. I thought Moon Knight was going to be coming out later this year, so my plan was to finish Absolute Carnage, The King in Black, which is like the kind of sequel successor to Absolute Carnage, and then I'd be like, cool, Extreme Carnage is coming out. That probably would be done for another few months, so I've got time. Then I can go on to Moon Knight. But now Moon Knight's here in like a month and a half, so it's like, oh god, I got to read a bit more. But I did read some of the older Spider-Man, especially because when I know Maximum Carnage isn't that old. I think that was the 90s.
93, I want to say. Yeah. And I played the video game. There was a video game for the SNES.
Yeah, because there's a comic, which is, I think it's, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a mini series of Carnage, and it's literally about the Maximum Carnage game coming out, and Carnage goes into the game itself and then has to fight Venom and that's one of the most balmy stories I've ever read, but it's really interesting. I thought it was crazy. I didn't think, by the end of it I was like, was that good? I don't know, but I'm quite glad I've consumed it.
I remember when the film came out, the Venom film came out, and there was a lot of complaints about Venom not being like this R-rated, dark, disturbing story. And I kind of went, Have you guys actually read any 90s Venom comics? They are all absolutely goofy as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, they're disturbing, don't get me wrong, and there's murder in it, and he like suffocates people, and he stalks Spider-Man, and they really go whole hog on the idea that he knows who Spider-Man is and stalking him and stuff, and I love that. And it's like he is a serial killer, basically, but with superpowers, so it's even, it's like, you know, Freddy, Jason, whatever you want to be, but he's after Spider-Man. He could just literally, he walks up to Aunt May and helps her like hang some washing out. He's like, "Don't you dare come near her," and stuff like that. But I was like, literally, if you like, Venom has never had an R-rated comic. Like they've never done a Marvel Max of Venom.
No, because they've done Punisher.
Yeah, they've done Punisher, they've done Wolverine, they've done all this other stuff. Like, and then again, there'll be swearing, there'll be extreme violence, blood, you know, heads coming off, you know, penises getting maimed, whatever you want to. It's all in there. Go see it. But Venom has never had that like R-rated stuff. Again, it's dark and it's done. Obviously, they can't show that amount of violence and brutality and blood. There's still dark and disturbing imagery, and the way he acts, and you know, there is that, and I think there's a little bit of that in Venom. But if you read it, there's him. You know, he's swinging across the city, going like "strangers in the night," you know, singing shit like that, and you're like, and he's like, you know, he's telling people to be, you know, he's like, "Oh, you're innocent." No, actually, yeah, there's a baby. He's attacking Spider-Man. There's this baby gets thrown from the carriage, and the parents are like, "No, my baby!" And he grabs the baby, and he's like, "No innocence should be hurt. Only Spider-Man. You need to be better parents," and throws the baby back at them. It's fucking stupid and bizarre. And that is that first Venom film. And I don't mind that film. Obviously, I had a little issue with the more recent one. But again, I don't think it's because of... I think Tom Hardy and Venom's, you know, the Eddie Brock and Venom relationship is the best thing in it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And even in Let There Be Carnage, I think that is the standout thing about it, is that Definitely. He has that he nails those characters, and he's read those books, the Lethal Protector, and
the references in Let There Be Carnage is great. And we will delve into that. I want to just ask, with Let There Be Carnage, have you only watched it the once?
Yes.
Okay, because I only watched the once. I watched the cinema, so I'd say that before we have our
watch it again.
Yeah. Because I have a feeling that I'm probably going to like it less, and I think you'll probably like it more.
Could be.
Because yeah, I think the first Venom film was a bit like that. I watched it and I was like, oh, this is really good. It's missing a few beats. It's really good. And I rewatched it and I was like, oh, that wasn't as good as I thought it was. And then I showed it to Megan because we're doing a big Spider-Man rewatch before No Way Home, because I predicted, like everyone did, what happened in that. And then when I watched it the third time, I was like, this is nowhere near as bad as I remember. This is actually I'm really enjoying this. It's really fun. And Megan loved it. She was so against watching Venom for ages because everyone told her it was so shit. And she was like, I hate Spider-Man 3. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Venom's going to be terrible. And then she watched it. She was like, this is really funny. No one told me it was this funny. And I was like, yeah, but if you tell someone Venom's funny, they'll go into it expecting Guardians of the Galaxy, which it is not. But anyway, with the comics and things, with Venom, like when I was reading a lot of that, and I was trying to go back and read some of the old school stuff, and even the 90s Maximum Carnage, I was reading it, I was like, I can feel this has aged, 30 odd years. And I was like, okay, I could feel the difference between that because I'm spoiled with modern comics and stuff. And then I was like, okay, let's go back a bit more. And because of, shout out to Matthew B. Lloyd of Comics in Motion, and he does the classic comics, which are so interesting. I really like him, mainly because, bluntly, I don't want to have to read hundreds of old comics because I appreciate them.
Like, he goes further back than most people. Like, he goes really like 30s, 40s. Human Torch, I think he did one on the Human Torch.
I love that one. Yeah.
That's a great one.
And I mad respect him for doing that. But I've read, maybe I haven't read the best ones and stuff, but I've read some of the like OG, like I went back and read like the first few Captain Americas after he did a thing about Captain America, and some of the really early Spider-Man comics, things like that. And I want to be honest with you, I could not stand them. I was reading them, I was like, the dialogue to me makes no sense because obviously where they're from, I mean, Captain America's like the 40s and you got Spider-Man, I think it's the 60s. So it's like, these were before my parents were even, my parents were born 49 and 59. So this was like when my parents were kids. I was like, okay, the dialogue in this at the time was a little bit cheesy for how people spoke then. Nowadays, it's just ridiculous because no one talks like that anymore. So I know you can't judge old literature on the way they speak, because obviously they couldn't write future in the time. You don't criticize Shakespeare for not using certain things, but it's like when I read it, I was like, okay, the dialogue in this is not the best. The artwork is still really cool, but because the artwork nowadays is so much computer stuff, and some of it, like some of those Carnage comics, you read like Carnage, the miniseries, some of the artwork in it is some of the best artwork I think I've ever seen, and I'm like, how did anyone think of this, let alone draw it? But then some of the older storylines, because they were so integral to comics and comic book movies, now that I'm kind of going back after playing the Spider-Man PS1 games and PS2 games and all the other Spider-Man games, because they're all amazing, and also watching the Spider-Man films and watching the 90s cartoon and all this other stuff, I've seen basically them cherry pick the best parts and in some ways improve them. So when you go back and check out the OGs, a lot of the time it's like, this isn't landing like I wanted it to. Yeah. Because it's almost how I describe
you've seen someone do a better version of it. It's like if you see Shakespeare, you see like an old 70s BBC production of Shakespeare after seeing, going to, I don't know, the Royal Albert Hall or some, I can't even remember theatres. That's how lapsed I am as an actor. I can't even think of a big theatre. Fuck it, one of them down in the West End. I'll just say the West End. one of them. There. Yeah. It's late. It's so late. I'm so tired. No, like it's like going and seeing that and having that emotional connection and enriching you and grabbing you and having that moment. Like that's the best thing about live theatre, is that it'll never be the same. Anything can happen. Like I've been on stage and absolutely proper shit the bed and like fucking forgot what I was doing. I don't know where the fuck I was. I did a show not so long ago. I was playing this ghost, and there was this huge comedy scene, opening night, and I have to duck behind this table, and there's a cloth, and I have to literally pop up, and that's my entrance. And I popped up, and I caught the back of my head on this table, banged my head, and I hit my head so hard, and I got such a head rush, I didn't know who the fuck I was for like a minute.
Oh my God.
And I was like, hello, I'm a ghost. I'm your uncle. And that's the only line I could remember. And the guy's looking at me like, what the fuck is going on with you? Like, because I'm just repeating the same line over and over. So not so much that the audience, realized. They heard the bang because it was pretty fucking hard. I was like a bit wobbly. But eventually it just it's just that muscle memory and just snaps back and you're like, bam. And then we did the scene and there was raucous laughter and it went down really well. And they were just like, what the fuck, what the fuck happened to you? And I was like, I banged my head. I didn't know who the fuck I was or where I was, what I was. It happens. It absolutely just happens. And there's a magic to that. And like everything everything will go wrong, could go wrong, Murphy's Law and everything. And that's one of the benefits of theatre and stuff is you could, obviously, the movies and stuff, they go through so many different hands and so many different eyes are on it and things. But yeah, there is something to be said for just being there in the moment. And yeah, I guess like generationally, we're going to have our versions of that. Like when I was reading, in the early 90s, mid 90s, I was reading those Venom stories. I had a collection that I destroyed basically because I read it so much, and those Carnage stories. I wanted to read Maximum Carnage for years, but I like buying the graphic. I don't really like the floppies. So, and they never collected it, or it was always rare, or it was always, you can never find it, or I was like desperate. And eventually they reprinted it. I was like, thank fuck, years. And I finally read it. Luckily it wasn't disappointing. I really enjoyed it. And I'm sure we'll get into that on our podcast about it and stuff. But I think there is something to be said for, it's a classic and it's breakthrough and it's groundbreaking. Like me and Andy and Jack have talked about these films. Even though we don't necessarily enjoy them, they're important landmarks in cinema for what they did, like Hitchcock and stuff, like Vertigo and stuff. Not a fan of Vertigo, but it introduced some things and it's remarkable in its own right. I don't particularly like the film, but I get why it's held up in such high regard and high esteem. And it's again with these comic book stories, is they are the classics, they're the classic runs, they're classic characters, and these things happen and But I like the DC animated movies because a lot of the stories they tell, I actually think they improve on them. Like they make them shorter, snappier. They make some small alterations, which I think a lot of the time do improve on the actual comic. And it's rare I would say that, but when I look at them, I go, like, I look at that, I read Flashpoint, and then I watch the Flashpoint Paradox, and I'm like, no, it works better in the animated movie. You know, it just flows better. It's connected better. There's more kind of synergy going on. You know, the performances, the music, everything. It just, there's something about it where I'm like, obviously you can't really compare a comic book to a movie. It's an adaptation. There's going to be changes. You know, it's not going to be, you know, I don't want to see the, you know, as much as I enjoy Watchmen, that is basically the comic, you know, and I appreciate that. And that's impressive in its own right to do that. To film what was effectively unfilmable is quite an achievement for, you know, love or loathe Zack Snyder. He did it. You know,
Watchmen's one of my favorite movies ever. I adore it. And I watched the director's cut. I was like, it's even better. And Megan was like, what have you made me watch? This sucks. This sucks so hard.
Have you got the one with the pirate cartoon in it as well?
No, I've got... So I know there's the 3 versions. There's the standard version. Well, no, there's 4 versions. There's the standard version, the extended version, the director's cut version, and then there's the ultimate director's cut version, which has the cartoon in the middle. And I had the normal edition for ages. And then I bought a steelbook which had the director's cut, and I was like, this isn't the director's cut with the cartooning, because if it is, I'm going to lose Megan. And so I checked it, and I was like, no, this is the version without that, because I think it's very difficult to get a home release version of in England.
The ultimate cut. Yeah, I actually bought the Region 1 DVD from America, because I had a region. I played around with my DVD player and got to play Region 1s, because I was really like, I love animation, and they never released for years. They never released any animation over here of anything, so it was a nightmare to find anything. So I got like Batman the Animated Series, Spider-Man, all that other stuff, and I got that from the US.
I found out Dragon Ball Z.
Exactly the same thing. I got Dragon Ball Z as well, and I got again Region 1, because it was just, you can't watch it otherwise, or I would just have to, you know, torrent it, or bloody, you know, watch a streaming site which I shouldn't be watching.
And I want to clarify. I want to say, like, with like back years ago, I used to, you know, torrent a lot of stuff because I had no money, but also a big part of it was things that frustrated me was Game of Thrones is the big one for me, which was like Game of Thrones came out like when the first few series were out, it was coming out like sometimes weeks or a few days earlier in the US than the UK, and I'm like, I don't give a flying fuck about licensing, about this. If you release an episode of Game of Thrones where a major character dies in America, because the internet exists, I will get it spoiled. That's absolutely. You can't do that anymore. And so with me, I was always like with torrenting, I was like, right, if I can't get it over here, if I can't pay for it over here, as long as it's not, you know, fucking extortionate, where it's like Amazon Prime, you want to watch a series like Flashpoint or something, or Arrow series, £2.50 per episode, please. And you're like, you're fucking what? There's 24 episodes. I can buy the Blu-ray on Amazon for quarter of that price. What are you doing? How can you charge that? Like, excluding those circumstances, I'm like,
and sometimes
it
would take months, 6, 7 months, 8 months down the line, and you probably, if anything, the DVD would be out before the show.
Yeah,
like on TV or on any of the kind of apps or whatever it was. You know, it was mental. I remember Heroes as well, and there's such a huge gap, and it was just like, why? I never got it. And even now, like, I went to watch the Halo trailer for the new show they've got coming out,
because I played the first 4 games. And
it was on the Paramount Plus site, and that's obviously not something we have over here. But the trailer was region locked.
What?
I was like, why is it region locked? I can't even pay for Paramount Plus over here. They'll drop it on Netflix or something like that. Or
Now TV is normally where things go.
There you go.
Everything on HBO Max seems to be on Now TV, because Sky seems to have everything that's not anywhere else. So,
well, there you go. Like, and I was like, that is fucking stupid. And what did I do? I had to go on. So instead of clicking the link that was on, I don't know, comicbook.com or whatever the website I follow on Facebook. So I went on YouTube and it's just there. I was just like, what? Why? Why make me jump through all these hoops just to watch a fucking trailer?
Because it makes you not want to watch it. Because some people, like for me, if that was me, I was like, oh yeah, Halo. Because I still haven't watched the trailer. I saw that I was on IMDb and I was like, oh, there's a Halo movie. I was like, I love the games up to the 4th one, and I enjoyed the 4th one, and I was like, do I want to watch a movie of Master Chief? Could it be good? Like, I don't even, I saw there's the Neil Blomkamp Halo thing that he made, because obviously he was meant to make the movie, and then they were like, nope, we're not going to do that. No one's going to buy it. Here's some money and some special effects. And he made one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made ever, District 9. But
nice.
With that, it was just like when they used to region lock stuff, I used to be like, oh, I'm hyped to see this. And then you can't get it. And you're like, well, fuck you. I don't care anymore. And then by the time you can watch, you're like, I've lost all interest in the hype's gone. I either know the plot or no one I know watched it because we can't fucking get it over here. So I've just given up. Oh, but you can watch it here now. I was like, I don't fucking want to. And also at principle, I now super don't want to.
But it was the same with like, I know the kind of licensing and all that other bullshit, but I just think, just make it like there was a DC app a while ago, and I think it failed anyway. But I think they've all gone over to, all the stuff has gone over to HBO Max now. But there was a DC app, and it had comic books on there. It had all the shows. It had Young Justice. It had Titans. It had all this other stuff. And I was like, sounds great. I'd literally, I would pay for that. I will pay for that. I'll get, I like DC stuff. If it's stuff that's available, I can binge it and what have you. Because I'm not really a TV guy. That's the thing. I don't tend to watch a lot of like big TV shows. I don't just tend to do it. I binged The Mandalorian, like I said, because I'm like, I haven't watched it, but I can fucking binge it. Let's do it. But yeah, there's only like certain things that will grab me, and again, even then, even if they're really good, I'll still fall off and not go back to it sometimes. And again, not because I hate it. That's just not my intention. Like for me, it's like short form storytelling. Give me a good story. Like you said, like with Arrow and Flash, too long, loads of dull episodes with nothing going on, overstretching these arcs and loads of weird storylines and stuff. I'm like, just keep it tight. I like the model there is now, the 8 episodes, like you were saying before. That's my favorite, and I prefer that to this. But I can't even remember what I was fucking talking about.
Region lock stuff really aggravates me as well. Because it's just
that was it. The DC app. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So they didn't release it internationally. Like, why? I was like, that's literally people will do it. It's like, it can't be that much harder. A few more servers here and there. Surely that's all it really needs.
Well, that's what annoyed me, because I will say, in your point with the 6-7 episode thing, I agree completely. And annoyingly, like, I watched a lot of the Marvel Netflix shows. I watched series 1 of all of it, apart from Iron Fist. I watched 4 episodes, then I just Wikipedia the rest of the plot and watched the Defenders, because I was like, this is fucking unbearably bad. Hey, this is meant to be the show that has the best martial arts in of all of them. What does it have? The worst. Okay. How is it the Daredevil's got better martial arts in the faceless baddies than Iron Fist does in the whole show? Ugh. Anyway, but Daredevil.
Lots of people said the second series was better, and it was more in line with what I would consider the comics and stuff. But I thought it was loads worse.
I mean, there's very little you could do to convince me to watch that show. I mean, I really enjoyed like Punisher series 1, but I didn't watch series 2 of that. I just never got round to it. And the problem is, Netflix at that time were like, everything needs to be 13 episodes, even when it shouldn't be. And I was like, okay. And even with Daredevil, which I think I've still only seen Daredevil series 1 and 2, because I caught up with series 2. And then by the time series 3 came out, I'd kind of lost a bit of interest and stuff. Yeah. And then me and Megan recently, before Far From Home, we watched Daredevil series 1 and 2, because I had an inkling and rumors, obviously. And then we watched the first 2 series. Great. We haven't watched the 3rd series yet. We're going to this year, even though I've heard it's the best series. But it's just one of the things where it's like...
Well, I mean, 1 and 3 are great. I like 2 as well.
I love 2, but I thought
2 was great.
2, I like 2 more than 1, because the Punisher stuff in Daredevil, I think, is some of the best anything I've seen in ages, including some of the one-shots, that hallway. The whole episode where he fights Punisher and then he's in the hallway is one of the greatest scenes, I think, in the last 20 years of cinema. I think it's so well done, and every punch has weight to it, which I love. But when you get into the stuff with Elektra on the hand, it's so fucking dull. But still, with Daredevil, it's like, here's 13 episodes. Okay, well, Daredevil should have been 9. If Daredevil was 8 or 9, it would be considered by nerds and non-nerds alike as one of the greatest TV shows that has happened in the last couple of years. Because there was 13 episodes, people who weren't that fast, they did what Megan would have done if I hadn't pushed her, which is got about 4 or 5 episodes in, and then when you get to that lull of giving up, because there's normally a 3 or 4 episode lull, it happens in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Instead of it being in one part, it's more Buffy. It's like, here's 5 great episodes. Now here's one shit one. Here's 5 great episodes. Here's one that's so bad, it almost ruins the series. And then here's one of the best episodes straight after it, because we had to do 22 or 24 episodes.
I think it was experimenting with the new model. I know, like, I really hate these old directors fucking complaining about like streaming models and things like that. Like Scorsese, like I like Scorsese. I like Ridley Scott's work, but and even Roland Emmerich's complaining at the moment, saying there's too many Marvel films and stuff. And I can't fucking. It's just like I'm an angry old man. It's very much like that, and like Scorsese's really bad for it. Also, I don't like actors that say, I hate comic book films. I'll never be in a comic book film. Stallone was really bad for that because he said, I hate comic book movies. They're stupid. Come see it. Expendables 1, 2, and 3. I'll never be in a comic book film. Then he made 2 in the space of 3 or 4 years. Fuck you, fucking hypocrite. Like, I know for a fact all of them will do one.
Yeah.
Like Ben Affleck, for example, he said, I'll never do another one after Daredevil. Daredevil was the worst. I'll never do one. They go, Batman, here's a lot of money. Yeah, sure, I'll do it again. Don't shit on something and then turn around. Like Scorsese shat on the Netflix model. He said, I don't like it. It's ruining cinema. Rah, rah, rah. No one's going to cinemas anymore. But when no one wanted to buy The Irishman because it was too fucking long, who came to save the day? Netflix. And then he was like, I'm all about Netflix. Netflix is great. I love the streamer model. Just fucking hypocritical bullshit from these old men. And Ridley Scott's like, everyone's on their phone and not watching films. No, it's not that. It's just that people want to go to something that cinema is more about blockbusters now. Your art house films and stuff. And like this was like TV's golden age. You had your Breaking Bads and your Game of Thrones. Like actors and proper drama that's being told in these formats, in this model. Nobody wants to go see a dry kind of Knights and of the old table, and no one's going to pay for that because it's just not what the audience wants. They want the Fast and the Furious. Like I wouldn't buy fucking Sophie's Choice on Blu-ray, or fucking HD because I'm like, I don't need to see that in HD. I want to see Terminator 2 in HD and Blu-ray and stuff. I want to see Aliens. I want to see that, the visual spectacle and the action, the explosions and stuff. That's the stuff I want to see in clear definition. I don't want to see like a weepy kind of drama. I'm not interested in that for stuff like that. And that's not what people are going to the cinema for. They're going for these big, even Bond, they didn't really turn out for. And they thought, and everyone was like, that's going to save cinema from COVID. Nobody really went to see it, no spoilers or anything, but it was a fairly big tentpole film. They spent more money on marketing than probably any film of all time, and it still didn't really make anywhere near the money they need to make up for all the marketing. But the film that's actually probably saved cinema is fucking Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like, and me and Megan have spoken about it as well. It's like there are films that come out where the problem is there's certain films that have limited releases, like Ex Machina. That I think is one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made. And when that came out, I was so hyped for it. I was like, I love Alex Garland. He wrote the book for The Beach and helped with the screenplay of it. And that's one of my favorite Danny Boyle films. He did a lot of work for Danny Boyle, a screenplay and stuff. And he also wrote a couple of other things as well that escaped me. But he's a very good writer and screenplay writer as well. So Ex Machina, I was like, well, Oscar Isaac's one of the greatest actors ever lived. And I think I will die on that hill. I think DiCaprio's probably the best, almost indisputably, but Oscar Isaac is so good, and so is James McAvoy. And then you've got Domhnall Gleeson, who's incredible as well, and you've got those two major Star Wars stars in a film which is made by the guy who's partly responsible for The Beach, who also did there's one other big thing he did, and I can't remember what it was. But he's done a lot of stuff. So I was like, I can't wait to see Ex Machina. It was out in the cinema for like a week. And I was like, I literally, same as a lot of Wes Anderson films. I was like, I love Wes Anderson, love it. But I don't have time to go. If it's out for 1 week or two and I'm busy, I can't go see that. But Marvel is like, we're going to be out in the cinema for like 2 months. And you're like, well, I can go see that whenever. And if you choose on the day it comes out, it's in every cinema, on every screen, every 15 fucking minutes. It's impossible to not find a time that works for you. When you want to see, like, there's a new film out with Jim Broadbent called The Duke that I want to watch.
I saw the trailer for it today.
Yeah, it's only going to be out for 2 weeks, I guarantee. But the thing is, if it's going to be on at really fucking annoying times, like 3 p.m. or 10 p.m., I'm not going to see it because I work and I can't go to the cinema that late. But when it's like a Marvel film, they're everywhere. And also the thing is, what people like Scorsese and stuff, who his comments on the Marvel films piss me off. It's not art. I'll fuck off. If I can make Silence one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life. Still, oh no, Christian suffrage. Then don't go to a country that told you if you go over there, we'll kill you if you try and change the religion of all our people. Fuck me. Anyway, I've got very strong feelings on that film. It really aggravated me, and I forced my friends to go to the cinema to watch it because I was like, Wolf of Wall Street's so good. Goodfellas is so good. Scorsese, he hasn't made a bad movie. 3 hours, that's fine for Scorsese. Then I watched Silence. That was awful. Anyway, basically, it's like, it's a risk. People don't understand, especially these now people in Hollywood who are directors who've got £1 billion or dollars. For us, not regular folk, okay, COVID especially killed the point of having a limitless membership for 99% of people, okay? Yeah. And most people who get limitless membership cards, they are normally, there's a generalization, but normally you've got a friend to go with, or you really, really don't have anyone to go with. When I was single, I went with two of my mates who are also single for about a year and a half. We went and saw everything. Once we all got girlfriends, we didn't have the time to make it worth spending £18 a month, because if we went to the cinema 3 times or less, it costs more money to have the Limitless card. So we were like, we're not going to the cinema every week because we've got other stuff we want to do. And the thing is that when you go to the cinema now, if you go to somewhere like View, you can get a ticket for as little as £5. If you go to somewhere like Showcase, it's more like 15 quid. And it kind of depends. I mean, Showcase, you get really nice reclining chairs and it's a lot more space and stuff.
I don't know where you're located, but it sounds amazing that you can pick and choose all these different cinemas.
It's
like
great.
15 miles.
Southampton. Southampton's where I am. Yeah, View and Eastleigh's a £5 a ticket, whereas Showcase with full-on reclining chairs. It's a View Case Deluxe, full-on reclining chairs with electric recliners and stuff. And that's normally 10 to 15 quid. So it depends what kind of experience.
Do you get like a nice variety of different types of films? Do you get like the indies, or do they like show some oldies and things like that?
Yeah, so View and Showcase, they often do a lot of the, especially when COVID was happening, they did like Terminator 2, and with Top Gun Maverick coming out, they're doing Top Gun, and they do a lot of double feature stuff as well. Picture House is the best one, which is the art house movies. They're the ones where the Duke is probably going to be there for a while. You can order beer when you go in there and have like a homemade vegan pizza and a beer while you watch an indie film no one's ever heard of. You can watch documentaries and crazy shit in there. I watched Under the Skin in there, which is you get to see.
Oh, good film.
I hated it.
Oh, really? Okay.
The best part for me, and this is going to make me sound like a misogynistic asshole, but it was in the midst of my Scarlett Johansson love. You get to see Scarlett Johansson naked, relatively, and that was at my peak of being basically a Scarlett Johansson simp. She's one of the most beautiful women that's lived, I think. But that was at the peak time where I fancied her so bad, and I just see anything she was in. And then we saw Under the Skin. I was like, we'll have to talk about Under the Skin another time, because I think I wouldn't mind rewatching that and doing that on maybe Secret Balls or something.
Yeah,
but
sure.
That may be with another film. But the point I was making was, when a film comes out, 9 times out of 10, I've never seen a Marvel MCU movie that I have actively disliked. There's some which are weaker than others, like Thor 2 probably and Iron Man 2. They're probably 2 of the weakest. But even those I enjoy. Same with all the Star Wars movies, same with a lot of those kind of types of films. They are a safe bet. If I'm going to spend up 15 quid, if I treat Megan, it's 30 quid. If we get a popcorn between, it's 35 quid plus parking, all that shit. If we go to that, that's instead of another day out. It's a couple of hours and it's a risk. If you go to see an MCU movie, it's going to enhance the experience because the visuals and the whole sound and the audience reaction to some degree can really, really help make the film better. So when you have that, you are paying £15 and it's a safe bet.
Yes,
when you go
absolutely
and see,
right. Absolutely right. You know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and if you see an indie film or something else, it's a risk, and you may just waste several hours and money.
But then again, we're going back to that. You know, if you look at something online, if you find like a dodgy website, you know, there's less risk. You can just do that in the safety. And then if you go, when I used to do it, I go on the dodgy websites and watch stuff that I don't really do now, but. When I would go on, if I really enjoyed it, I'd go out and buy it.
Same. That's why I've got so many DVDs and Blu-rays.
That's the thing. I discover stuff. And I think that's another thing, is that I love all these cult classics. And I think nowadays I used to go to HMV and I used to literally flick through what they had. Just flick through.
And I worked at HMV for a bit as well, so I got a discount.
Of course you did. You know what I used to do? I used to say, oh, I bought this and I already have it. Oh, can I return it and swap it for something else? And they'd be like, yeah, okay. I was there like every week. Literally just handing it back. I'd watch it, hate it, and be like, yeah, I'll get something else. Just literally
genius. I mean, I'd go to CX a lot as well, to clarify. Like DVDs like a quid. Like 10% of my collection's from CX.
Oh yeah, well I picked up when I started the podcast. That was the first thing I did. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to CX and just see how fucking cheap. Now that it's just like £1 DVDs and stuff there, and I even went the other day and was like, oh, I love that. So yeah, but you can't really like. going through and looking for records as well. That's not really a thing you do anymore.
Yeah.
Like people discover music in a totally different way. Like if you told someone, you know, a 16-year-old that you would used to go into a shop and rent videos, they think you're a dinosaur, you know.
Yeah.
It's like a totally different world. And it's only been really a few years, you know, decades, I guess. But, you know, it's changed vastly. But yeah, you don't discover really. It's a very and even if you do discover stuff, there's films that are designed to be a cult classic. So they'll be like, oh, it's exploitation, there's violence, there's zombies, there's all this other stuff, and it's trying to be like bad or purposely a cult classic or modeled on that model of being a cult classic. It's not really a cult classic that's been discovered and there's a fan base or anything like a rabid fan base for it. You know, it's not really the same sort of world. You'll discover like films, like every so often they'll be like, oh, there's a really good film that people haven't seen and it's on Netflix and you should check it out. But it's not, you wouldn't go, oh, it's a cult classic. It's just something that's underrated and underseen, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't really exist anymore. So, like, that's why a lot of the stuff I do, it tends to be like a lot older, you know, because arguably there is a fan base and there's a lot of people know about it. But yeah, it's just not, it's not quite the same experience, is it? Like, it's weird that the world, you know, and I think that's what cinema is struggling with, because the world moves on and technology moves on so quick. Like there's not even like laws fast enough to sort out, you know, the possible, like the internet came along and they were like, well, this will revolutionize everything. Oh, look at all this porn. You know, before you even knew it, there's so much porn. But
the porn is at the frontier of like all the porn industry, like is responsible for almost all technology in the last 20 years, enhancing its visual. Like VR, what was the first things you could get on VR? It was VR porn. And it apparently helped the industry of VR get further and more people buy it. And then they go, oh, I've already got this VR for this crazy intricate porn I watch. Oh, they got Doom on VR as well. Well, let's buy that too. God.
You can play Doom on anything, a calculator, a microwave. Like that's the beauty of that game. Just play it wherever. But yeah, like it's the same with Blu-ray. Blu-ray won out over, I think it was HD DVD.
That was because of PS3s though. Did you know about that?
Yeah, there was the porn angle and the PS3 angle, wasn't it?
The loss leader PS3 angle, which was it's the same reason why DVDs won over, was it Betamax? Was that the right?
No, you're thinking VHS and
VHS and Betamax.
I think you're thinking DVD and Laserdisc.
Laserdisc, which PSP had. DVD won because of XYZ, but Blu-rays beat HD, partly because of porn, but also because what Sony very cleverly did, and that people forget this about Sony.
Yeah.
Like, Disney are never really going to buy out Sony because Sony they create far more things than Disney do. Disney have got merchandise and IPs, and that's about it. Whereas Sony have got TVs, game consoles, etc. in the works. And what they cleverly did, they sold PlayStation 3s, and it cost more to make them than they sold them for. But what it did is it put a Blu-ray player in, like, of all gamers, like 30% of homes immediately. And then they're like, well, then that's what I did. Like, I didn't have a PS3, but when I got a PS4, which already had a Blu-ray player in it, well, I already had a Blu-ray player or two. Well, I was like, well, I don't need these old Blu-ray players. I'm just going to use my PlayStation 4 as a Blu-ray player. And in doing that, because I use my PlayStation more, little adverts pop up of games. You buy more games from that. And it's a very, very clever marketing model. And that's how Blu-rays kind of won, because it was like, well why would anyone buy that?
But they own Blu-ray. That
exactly,
Sony
they creates
Blu-ray. So every film you buy on Blu-ray, no matter what production company, no matter what, Sony's getting a kickback. So, you know, like that's smart to buy out an entire form of, like, that's like, you know, Warner Bros owning video cassettes.
Yeah.
Like, it's mental. Like, that's crazy to me that there's an art form, there's a form of art, or like, you know, that is literally owned by one company, one conglomerate. Is like, it's like if, I don't know, bloody, you know, it's like if they own canvases, you know, or brick walls for graffiti artists. You know, it's fucking mental. You know, if they owned every single theater in the entire world, it's like it's almost kind of scary and kind of like, you know, you're like, oh, it makes you uncomfortable now to think that every time I buy a Blu-ray, they're going, you know, like, oh yeah, you know, and also that's a problem, because like the stuff I look at, there's a lot of these really obscure stuff, and there's stuff where I have to literally go on YouTube and see if it's on there. Like I'll, with various other kind of the kind of stuff we look at on the show is kind of really obscure, or really like people are like, I can't get this on DVD. I can't get this on Blu-ray. Not even in this country. Like Ria couldn't get hold of Slither when we did that on the podcast. Oh. She had to buy it from Germany. And luckily, I think I already owned it at the time. So I bought it years ago, though. I still had it from years ago, like tucked away somewhere. And I was just like, that's crazy that you have to, again, like I was doing earlier when I was buying all those American animated shows. There's no other way to watch them other than, the amount of import tax I had to pay as well. It was ridiculous. I wouldn't do it now. I wouldn't buy, import any of those from, especially not from Europe, because again, there's problems with that as
Brexit.
Well. Brexit. God damn you, Brexit. But yeah, like it's mental that, again, in just the space of a few years, that the entire entertainment industry, like physical media as well, like that's almost non-existent now. And again, it kind of comes back to that censorship thing as well, because like I went to watch Aliens on Disney Plus. The only version they've got is the theatrical version. They don't have the director's cut.
Oh,
again,
that pisses me off. I saw a Butterfly Effect. I should make a Butterfly Effect, and I won't say the ending for people who haven't seen it. So I think it's a criminally underrated film. I think it's ace. The ending in the non-director's cut sucks ass. The director's cut is at 4 endings for that. The director's cut is the only one worth watching, and I have it on DVD. And I was like, there was 2 versions on Amazon, and they were both free to watch with Prime. And I was like, okay, and I checked which one was longer, and I was, that's gonna be the director's cut then, and it wasn't. And then we ended it, and I was like, that completely took away from it. And it's like with certain other films, I'm like, what? If you own the content, give us the option for director's cut. So I own so many DVDs and Blu-rays and certain things. Sorry.
That's it. No, you're right, though. Absolutely. And that's the point I was making, is that, again, the access to stuff, that's it. It's the freedom to access it and to watch it and to enjoy it. It's becoming more and more difficult, and that's why people burn it onto DVDs and do all that other stuff. Like I've recently bought this little Blu-ray external Blu-ray and DVD drive, and I copied a couple of films for me and Tonya and Ria to watch for an upcoming podcast, and it took a while to do. I've never done it before, so I had to learn how to do that, and I was like, I think hopefully this will work. It did, which was fine. It was fairly simple, just took a while. And I sent those over to them, and apparently, they work and stuff. But it saves me going, let me look through YouTube if I can find this old film. And again, it's what is the quality you're going to watch of it? Is it VHS copy? Is it a DVD
Is
copy?
half of it in Spanish, like the holiday special?
I forgot about that. God, yeah, just all of a sudden, like El Galactico Star Wars. It was mental. That I was like, what the hell is going on with this?
Is this part of the holiday special? Is this zany? I could almost believe it.
I was like, yeah, because again, that's on YouTube. You can watch that in full. I was expecting it to be released on Disney Plus, because they showed a few clips on a trailer for Disney Plus of the holiday special. So I thought maybe for Life Day, because they made a big deal about Life Day and everything. So I was like, they got the comic out. I listened to your podcast on the comic, and all the different media, and they had the Galaxy's Edge, they had all the merch, and Chewie in the big robe, and had the orbs and everything, which are now canon. And so I thought maybe that's what they're going to do. They're finally going to go, but that's the thing as well with Disney. They want you to have fun on their terms.
Yes.
So like with the Mandalorian, with the guy in the jeans that they saw in the background, the mistakes and stuff, like it's like in Cloud City, the guy who's running around with the ice cream maker,
I used to know his name.
Yeah. It's like Woodrow
Wilson.
Yeah, something like that.
Nicely done. Like you knew that better than I did. Wow.
Who knows? I think it's something like that. I think I read about it recently anyway, because they talk about it showing, because that's what happened in Book of Boba Fett, wasn't it? The ice cream maker blows up and stuff. Spoilers. But they, you can't have those little moments. You can't have those to yourself, because they're like, oh, we can see a guy in jeans, that ruins it. This is not a joke we're making, so you can't have that fun. You can't do that. You can't make fun of this or have that little bit of I don't like that. The idea that
retconning. It's
yeah.
I like adding. I like if they saw the blue jean guy and we kind of fucked up. How about in the next series of live action stuff we do, like in Book of Boba Fett that's being made? How about we have someone in there who, in passing, is just a street seller and is selling this type of clothes, and someone walks past and goes, God, why is he still saying that old stuff? No one's worn them since the old Republic days. And that would be brilliant. It would be funny, and it would make everything make sense. But no, they go, yeah, let's just wipe that. And it's like, can't take the fun away.
That's exactly with the ice cream maker. They make it part of the canon. They've gone, we'll give it a name. It's a container of certain things. Done. Like, again, it adds to it. There's a layer to it. You can have fun with it. But again, there's all the jokes like the stormtroopers missing all the time and stuff that adds, and that's a bit of fun. And obviously that's an in-joke and fans can recognize that. But when you start like erasing stuff, I'm like, it was a big deal when the special editions came out for Star Wars when I was younger, I think 97, I think it was. And they put all the Dewbacks in and all the other stuff. They took all the werewolves out of the Mos Eisley.
Shistafarans, I think they're called.
Yeah. And they did all these changes and they made bloody, they cut and edited loads of stuff. And there was a big controversy then when that came out. And it was just an attempt to make the film better. They put Jabba in there as well, that Jabba scene that they cut out. And then again, they released. I don't like directors messing with their films. I don't mind them doing like a director's cut, and they go, yeah, that's a director's cut. That's fine. But like Ford Coppola's come out with another, like he came out with a Redux, which I think of Apocalypse Now, which I think is shocking and shit and adds nothing. And now he's come out with another cut. And like Steven Spielberg, like making the guns in E.T. walkie-talkies. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're just making it worse, if anything.
I mean, it's like, Lucas, I think that most of the stuff, although I agree with you completely, I don't like when they go back and mess with films. You released it, that's fine. If there's something that's like heavily, horribly racist or something, and it's a film from the 60s that barely anyone watches anymore, and you want to pop it on Disney Plus, and it doesn't ruin the entirety of the film, pop it on. Or if you're going to remake a film like they did with Dumbo, don't have the quite racist crows in there, whatever, that's fine. But when it's, if you have your one film and you get to release one other version, which is the special edition or the director's cut or whatever, and that should be it. And with Lucas, like, although the special editions, I think the special editions, for the most part, improve the films either a little bit or vastly, aside. When Vader yells no at the end of Return of the Jedi, that is the worst edit to anything I've seen, and it really fucks me off because there's a whole generation of Star Wars fans, including Megan, who's never seen Return of the Jedi where he's just silent, and that makes the whole scene better. You don't need someone to yell no when you can see they're in pain and they're thinking and trying to figure something out, and when they do an act which literally changes the course of the galaxy and undoes the damage they've done to their own life and the galaxy for the last 2 decades, you don't need them to yell out no. It's in context. No one yells out no when they do something like that.
But like,
fucks me off.
George Lucas is not, like you said earlier, he's not one for dialogue. Like that's not his strong suit. His strong suit is he's an idea man. I think he's a really good. 100%. Like he's got a good. He knows story structure.
Yes,
he can do that. He gets the beats and everything. He gets what needs to happen. But when it comes to writing, like believable actual dialogue that people talk normally. Yeah, exactly. Look at that.
He needs someone to rein him in. He needs someone to like to go, George, you've got 80% full control here. We've got this other guy behind you who's going to rein you back a little bit and help you in the edits. If they did that with the prequels rather than going, George, you're a genius, do whatever you want. The prequels could have been the new Star Wars trilogy instead of being the prequels. They're not known as the other Star Wars thing. They're known as the prequels, just like the sequel trilogy are known as the sequels. Not here's another almost as good Star Wars trilogy. It's like no, here's the gold, and then the other two are worse than the OG, but in completely different ways. But they're just objectively not as good. And
one of my least favorite kind of changes for those Star Wars films is the end of Return of the Jedi with all the Force ghosts.
Yep.
So you've got the old Yoda, you got old Obi-Wan. Why have you got young Anakin?
I think the idea, and this is now me being an apologist, is that was the last time he was, air quotes, truly the light side version of himself, the true Anakin Skywalker. And when he was that Anakin, he turned to Darth Vader, and then he was only Anakin for a smidgen of time when he was in the suit. Whereas Obi-Wan and Yoda both died in the light. That's a very, very apologist cop-out answer. But in my headcanon...
in your headcanon. But he redeems himself, he kills the Emperor. So is he not coming back to the light side? And
yeah, he's coming back, but that's like the idea. I think it's
that's the idea of it. Yeah,
I mean, I think the idea is, realistically,
it was
when you're a kid
together, wasn't it?
Yeah, when you watch the prequels and you see the original trilogy, and then you watch episode 6, oh my god, Anakin's a Force ghost. Whereas if it was just an old dude, like if Megan watched that, for example, without me explaining it, she would go, "Who the fuck is that?" And I'd be like, "That's what Anakin looks like before the prequels," and she'd go, "I don't get it." So in that respect, I get it. Although, one would think, so do you not? Tweak Obi-Wan as well and Yoda. It does open up a huge amount of holes.
I would just do them all. If you're going to do like the young version of everyone, make it consistent. Yeah, like that because you can get Ewan McGregor in. You can get a young Yoda. You can do the CGI Yoda, or you can do the puppet Yoda from Episode 1. Yeah, do one of that. It's easy, but it was just that always and also the erase. I didn't like the idea of you're erasing another actor. I don't like that.
Yeah, I kind of wish they'd have had it as it had the old guy, and then he turns into Anakin. Or maybe it was Anakin, as in Hayden Christensen's Anakin, and then he turned, like he's there first, and he walks out and it's him first, and then he slowly turns into the old one, and then everyone knows, and it makes sense, and it's showing the transition.
Yeah, sure.
That would have worked quite well, rather than going, erasing. Because that's one of the things people said about Tamira Morrison doing the overdub for Boba in Return of the Jedi. Yeah. They're like, well, now you've just erased this guy who I think has passed away now.
Jeremy Bullock, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, he passed away semi recently. Yeah. And he was famous in the fandom circuit because he went to comic conventions and stuff because he was known as Boba Fett.
I actually saw him once. I was at, I think it was London Comic Con, London Film and Comic Con.
I went to that. I've been to that once actually. I went when Dan John Jules was there as Cat. What a day. from Red Dwarf, to clarify for listeners who don't know who that is. Shame on you.
Shame. But yeah, I remember because it was absolutely ram. That was the time I met Stan Lee as well. When I went, it was just absolutely, you couldn't move. And then all of a sudden there was this kind of, everyone started staring at this one guy, and it was a guy in a Boba Fett outfit, and I was like, that's a good cosplay. Yeah. And I watched him, and I was like, why is everyone paying so much attention? They're literally kind of in awe of him. And I was like, it's just a good cosplayer. But then he sat down at his table and took his helmet off.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought that is a pretty cool guy. I didn't get his autograph or I didn't get a photo or anything, but I just thought that's a cool moment just to see that. So but there you go. I mean, you could talk all day about David Prowse and everything that happened to him, and there's even a documentary about it.
Was he in the Vader suit?
Yeah, so he's the Vader actor. So he's the physical embodiment. He played him, but obviously he's this I think he was from Somerset or somewhere like that.
I've seen the part in A New Hope where he's holding the guy, holding Captain Antilles by the throat, and he yells at him the lines that obviously they overdub with James Earl Jones, and you hear his actual accent, and you're like, oh shit, it's a good thing they didn't use his voice, because that is not scary in any of the right ways.
No, but there was like a promise made that he was going to be under the suit. It was going to be him, during that last scene, but they got, I think he's called Sebastian Shaw, which is a comic book character's name as well, the actor who actually plays him in Return of the Jedi. But yeah, so in this documentary, spoilers for the documentary, I think it's called I Am Your Father, I think. But the documentary people, they reenact the scene with him as playing Vader in that scene where he talks to Luke. They couldn't show it. They can't show you it for legal reasons. But they show a select group of people in the cinema. It's a really sweet documentary because he's a bodybuilder and he kind of actor and stuff. It's kind of a little sad, another bitter, twisted actor tale. But yeah, it's a really nice, sweet documentary. I think it is called I Am Your Father, I want to say. But yeah, check it out if you can find it. I don't know if maybe it's on Disney Plus. I don't know.
I doubt it. If it's going to be talking about how Lucasfilm screwed him over a little bit, probably won't be put it on there. But I mean, I could talk to you all evening, but it is almost midnight, and we've been chatting for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
Yeah. Don't apologise, good sir.
Sorry.
I've been able to keep an eye on the whole time. We got to a nice impasse there. as evidenced by this podcast with you and I, if we then start something else, we'll be talking for another 15 minutes at least.
Yeah, you're talking to somebody who just recorded a 4-hour plus podcast, and I don't know if I've got the energy to do it.
No, and I've most of my podcasts are around an hour to an hour and a half, but especially last week, like this is the first week I haven't done the Book of Boba Fett show, which is like basically every Thursday, an hour or two of recording, then sitting and basically waiting for everything to render and upload.
Oh God,
and then
the processing.
Basically from say everyone joining the Zoom call to 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning. That was every Thursday for the last.
I feel your pain. Yes, I know that. That's why I try and aim to keep it like hour and a half to 2 hours. Not the latest one, but yeah, it's that's the again, like I'm sure you can have me on next time. We can actually talk about maybe podcasting a bit more, or acting a bit more. I can
whatever. Yeah,
I can definitely like. If I'll have my focus on, then I can be like, okay, I'll focus on those points. But I like talking entertainment. We talk cinema. We talked all over the show. But yeah, it's been a really cool chat, and I appreciate you for having me on.
Well, yeah, I want to introduce you to my audience. Obviously, I will reiterate, people need to go check out your appearance on Era of Geek, as well as Angry Andy's appearance and mine, and anyone else's really. All of the appearances are excellent on there, and I'll put links in the description if you want sort of a
check out the entire litany of my podcasts as well if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, but then leading on to, because I wanted my audience to be introduced to you, because that's one of the things I like to do when I meet someone cool. I want any amount of my audience who don't already know who they are to find out, just so for the future they can try and cross-pollinate audiences. And you're being so kind to have me on your show very soon.
Absolutely.
When we end the Zoom call, when I stop recording on Zoom, we'll briefly we'll talk about that, but we'll do that afterwards. So if you just want to plug yourself, I'm recording the video here, so if you do it subtly. If you're going to plug yourself, so the audience don't have to watch quite in that way. But
just like the jacking into the Matrix, jacking in, and then jacking off. They don't say that in the Matrix. They definitely should though.
Maybe
we've got to jack in. We've got to jack off. That's the only way to stop this.
That's what Cypher could have said, isn't it? When he was portraying it, it's like, oh yeah, just jacking off when you're not jacked in. Is it the same?
Yeah, it's like, I really want to enjoy masturbating, good, like cracking one off with the lady in red. So this is where we end it now. Anyway,
I'm not going to let you plug, because that's the end.
Yes, the plug. That's it, zings. But yes, the podcast is Spider-Dan the Secret Balls. It's where we celebrate underrated media, be it comics, be it films, be it whatever. We discuss all sorts of topics. There's loads of different formats. If you don't like one format, you've got something else. And again, each one is totally different guest voices. It's I'm very keen on variety. So you could love one episode and hate the other, or you have no interest in the other, but that's what I like as well. And check it out. It's fun. It's definitely a walk on the weird and wild side of kind of cinema and comics and stuff. But you never know what I'm going to come out with next, which is the exciting thing. And I've got some more Comics in Motion guys coming on this year. I'm going to try and get as many Comics in Motion people on, because you've welcomed me into the Discord and the larger family, which I really do appreciate. And as annoying as I am on the Discord and spoiling things and probably just messaging far too much, because I'm just bored here in my flat alone. I'm like, I need some company. But yeah, just check it out. There's 128 episodes currently, so there's quite a lot there. And again, you get to see me and see it grow and see all the people I talk to, and you'll have your favorites like Angry Andy and Dennis are some of my favorites to have on. But yeah, it's a great show. It's a fun show, and it's varied. It's very varied. So check us out. It's on all good podcatchers. Check out the website, spiderdanandthesecretballs.com, BORES, and you'll find everything linked to it, or all the other bits and pieces. I'm not going to do all the social medias, but @Dan_balls is Twitter, Secret Balls is on Facebook, and Spider-Dan Secret Balls is Instagram. There you go. I did them anyway. See, I was going to say. I was going to do them, but I did them.
I'm not going to do them. But here they
I'm
are.
I'm a liar. But yeah, it's only because I was like, can I remember them all? Yeah, I can.
I'll put them in the description anyway, and link to your website. And I'll say, any listeners, if you want a good jumping off point, the two most recent ones that I listened to, there was 1941, which was the with Jack's Musings, who's been on this podcast a few times. That was
My biggest fan. I like to call him because he was there. He was there from the start. He was there from the beginning. Episode 1.
That's very sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So he's amazing, and the 1941, I just finished that, and that's a really good pod, and it's one of those ones where it works even if you haven't seen the movie. And and it's a Spielberg. It basically ruins a streak of Spielberg releasing like 6 unfathomably good movies in a row with just one very divisive movie, should we put it that way?
Yeah.
So that's a really good starting point. And the Star Wars holiday special you do with Angry Andy, because everyone who knows something about Star Wars knows something about the holiday special. And trust me, you don't need to watch the holiday special. This is one of those times that even though me and Dan said it earlier on, I hate when people have opinions on things and they haven't seen it. Holiday special, I've never seen it. I've seen, the movie, the animated Boba Fett cartoon that's on Disney Plus, and I've seen numerous clips of the songs and the VR porn stuff and Chewie's Weird Family. So I've probably seen about 15 minutes plus the Boba Fett thing. And from all accounts I've heard, everyone says very similar things of the bizarre craziness of it. I'm going to watch it at some point just to say I have seen it. But it's one of those few things I've heard. If you haven't seen it, you can still have an opinion on. It's one of the very few things. and again, like we were talking about loads of these old films and rubbish films and cult films on YouTube. That is in HD. That's in 4K on YouTube. So it's almost, it's the room of Star Wars movies. No matter how much you hate The Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, whatever prequels, the absolute worst content I've covered. We've done the Ewok films as well, me and Andy. But I'm glad you enjoyed that episode, because I was like, of all the people who's going to listen, I was like, oh, I think he's gonna pull me up if I'm wrong, or if it's he's going to be like, no, it's actually the canon is correct and this is the best thing about it. I better know my shit. I did a lot of research going in, and Andy knows his shit obviously as well, and that's why I did the little game with him, which I fucking loved playing that game. It was hilarious. I mean, I need to basically get you at some point to try and quiz me on Star Wars to see if I know as much as I like to think I do, or quiz me and Andy at the same time and prove I don't know as much as people
that
think.
might be interesting. Yeah, because almost like a game show.
Well, the thing is, when it comes to the movies, for example, it's like I've done Star Wars quizzes before, and the problem is that my knowledge comes from the lore and trivia, and not necessarily stuff in the films. So if you go, who was the first person to speak in A New Hope? It's like, I don't know. I can't, if I sat there and think about it, how opening scene and stuff, I could probably figure it out. But, or if you go, who in the room with Grand Moff Tarkin and Vader and stuff, the Imperial officers on the Death Star, who was the first person to speak in that scene? I was like, I don't know. No. What was, lots of things like that, or what was the words written on this part or that part? I don't know. But if you could say,
well, that's like a memory test, though, isn't it? Yeah. It's like I'm the same. I can't tell you like issue numbers and stuff of Spider-Man, but I can tell you when and where, maybe what year, around about. I can tell you the artists and the writers.
Yeah. You know the story more so than like the anal specifics. Whereas like me, Star Wars, it's like I couldn't tell you, how many on-screen minutes Tarkin had, but I can tell you what planet he's from, his first name. I can tell you information about him that's not in the films. But if you quiz me on the films, I won't do as well as someone who doesn't know Star Wars as well as I do, but appreciates the film more. You know what I mean? But I'd be still willing to.
That sounds like an idea, certainly. But check those out if you like Mike's stuff. Jump over and check out Andy's stuff as well. He does a lot of Star Wars content if you like that, figures and all sorts. This has been great, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute blast to have some genuine chit chat.
Perfect. That is how we're going to end it. Thank you so much, sir.